Chapter 1536. Jiang Tian regained his composure. His eyes became clear and sharp as he asked, Ghost Wolf, how long will it take to reach the steel forest? My lord, we have already entered the border of the 10,000 mountains. At our current speed, it will take us a day. Ao Tian Sword Venerable said respectfully. Half a day doesn't matter. Jiang Tian nodded slightly and looked at the pitiful 2-year-old child. He smiled and said, Deference is no substitute for obedience. Thank you for your invitation, old master. Then, he led the group into the village. It is our honor to have you here. The villagers of Heavenly Village were extremely enthusiastic. The village chief invited the guests into the stone house to boil water and chop firewood. He also ordered a pai xiao and a saber-toothed tiger to be peeled for Jiang Tian and the others. They were all delicious dishes. The hunters in the village accompanied Jiang Tian and the others to chat. Children, alligators, iron-boned dogs, and other domestic animals were gathered in the village. From time to time, they would poke their heads out and look around. The women were jubilant and lively. The village was so primitive that it was beyond imagination. The houses were all made of stone and wood. Even the axes were made of stone. There were almost no metal objects. There were only a few iron knives and spears used for hunting. Other than food, all the families had nothing. Jiang Tian had the same feeling as when he entered the longevity village of Haifika's lake back on Earth. However, when Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, he noticed that there were a few weapons in the depths of the house. They were very old but still sharp. The key was that there were ancient words on them that said, made by heavenly workers. Jiang Tian was slightly shocked. If he was not mistaken, they should be the descendants of the ancient heavenly court. No wonder they were called the Heavenly Village. A few nimble women and girls poured tea in ceramic cups and served it respectfully. The tea here was very strange. It was collected from the leaves and petals of some kind of spiritual medicine and dried fruit slices. It was very similar to fruit tea on Earth. The village chief smiled and said, You came from the outside. I heard that the outside world has changed. The Emperor Hanshi of the Ruins of Immortality was killed by a bandit called Kang Te-chu. Is that true? Indeed. Jiang Tian maintained his composure. This place has changed drastically. It is no longer under the jurisdiction of the Ruins Emperor. Why does Old Master care about this? I heard that Kang Te-chu is a native of the deity ground. He even came from the distant solar system. The village leader didn't answer. Instead, he asked another question. That's right. Esteemed guest, please excuse me for a moment. The village chief's expression was slightly solemn. He walked out of the door and said a few words that Jiang Tian and the rest couldn't understand. Immediately, the whole village was in jubilation. The men raised their arms and cheered loudly. Many women and young girls even shed tears. Jiang Tian walked out of the door and said with a smile, Mr. Village Chief, can I take a look around the village? Esteemed guest, please help yourself. Following that, the village chief led all the male villagers and carried a few ferocious beasts to a huge stone platform halfway up the mountain. They kowtowed 3 times and 9 times to a grave. It was a solemn ceremony. Many people shed tears. In front of the grave knelt a huge corpse that was wrapped in iron wires and vines. Even after countless years of decay, there was still a faint fluctuation of dermic powers. A baleful aura emanated from it, indicating that it belonged to the bloodline of the Ruins Emperor. Bright red beast blood stained the huge stone platform and flowed along the engravings on the stone surface. It was a brilliant red. Together with the thick fur of the behemoth, its scales that shimmered with cold light, and its ferocious horns, it was a shocking sight. There was a tragic desolate aura that surged over. The charred grave was as silent as before. It didn't react at all, as though it had never used any offerings. However, many villagers knew that it had a spirit. Under the village chief's arrangement, a few burly men threw out an ancient stone tablet from a pit. On it were written in very ancient and profound words, "Tomb of perfected Lord Zhao Ziming, the hero who resisted the South Gate's 1 star." They solemnly placed it in front of the grave. The village chief carried a bucket of water forward and carefully wiped the soil off the tombstone. "Distant ancestor, divine Emperor Hanshi is dead. Your tombstone can finally be erected openly. Perhaps it won't be long before the ruins' emperor is killed as well. Let us look forward to it together." The village chief leaned on his walking stick. With the support of 2 children, he was still trembling with excitement as though he was on the brink of collapse. There were still many young men, women, and children left in the village. They were slicing the beasts with silver knives, skinning and scraping the bones. From time to time, there would be clanging sounds and sparks. The behemoth's bones were shockingly hard and difficult to cut. Long Xingnan, Zhang Qingyang, and even Bai Muxue went to help in high spirits. They conjured their cultivation techniques and condensed their quintessential essence into sabers that sliced through everything. It made the children cheer. Awesome! They are the legendary cultivators that can become immortals. The children revered them greatly as their eyes revealed their desire. Someone had already prepared a huge jar made of clay to collect the blood essence that was preserved in the special parts of the beasts' bodies. To them, it was an excellent blood tonic that was extremely rare. "Uncle Ghost Wolf, have a bite." Zhang Qingyang broke off a section of the jackdaw's wing and began munching on it. "You want me to eat my distant relative? Zhang Qingyang, you little bastard, you sure are naughty. Are you asking for a beating?" Ghost Wolf looked at the jackdaw meat that was sizzling with oil. He had a pained expression as he shouted anxiously. "It's really fragrant. It's a ferocious beast that often flies. Its meat is very elastic. Furthermore, it can consume spirit herbs and spirit herbs. It's very nutritious." Zhang Qingyang's saliva splattered as he ate to his heart's content. "Proud heaven, why don't you discipline your disciple? Be careful that I don't beat him up." Ghost Wolf gritted his teeth as he shouted. 2 glistening droplets of saliva accidentally flowed out as he sucked them in. "Ha, Uncle Ghost Wolf, you're obviously greedy." Zhang Qingyang was overjoyed. "Uncle Ghost Wolf, don't force yourself. Ghost Wolf, why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? You have to admit that you're greedy." Long Xingnan also laughed. Even Sword Venerable Ao Tian was amused. Bai Muxue also revealed a smile. "I'm drooling because of the saber-toothed tiger meat." Ghost Wolf refused to admit and turned his gaze to the side. He was indeed tempted just now. The jackdaw meat was too fragrant. It was filled with local spices, oil, and honey. Furthermore, the people of the heavenly village were very good at barbecuing. The meat was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. This was a rare opportunity for Jiang Tian and the others to relax. After a series of battles, they were surrounded by dangers. Their nerves were stretched taut, and no one could withstand it. At this moment, they temporarily forgot about fighting and killing. They became mortals, experiencing the mortal world and relaxing their bodies and minds. The 2-year-old girl wearing a dudu sat in the corner with her father. She looked worriedly at her father's bleeding wound. "Father, how long will it take for you to get better?" She was still a little stuttering, but her body was very strong. Her little face was filled with nervousness and worry. Crystal clear tears were swirling in her eyes. This was the inheritance of this clan. Their bloodline was special, and they could speak and walk at a very early age. Since ancient times, their clan had trained their bodies. However, they couldn't master any spells. Basically, they were all experts in close combat. "Father will be able to get up in 3 months. I'll let you ride a horse." The man's face was very pale. He was enduring severe pain, but he still smiled lovingly. He didn't want his daughter to worry. Beside him, the man's wife turned around and cried silently. The man was bitten by the saber-toothed tiger. Venom was left on his bones and wounds. It was difficult to heal. Even if he recovered, he wouldn't be able to walk again. However, she couldn't bear to tell her daughter and make her sad. The hunters in the village would be injured or even killed by the savage beasts every once in a while. Their lives were very difficult. Such a harvest was accompanied by a painful death. There's no need for 3 months. At this moment, Jiang Tian walked over lazily. He took out a bottle of pills and said with a smile, 3 hours is enough. Thank you for the pills, immortal. The man and his wife hurriedly took the pills and knelt down to thank him. They were so excited that their bodies were trembling. Their faces were full of gratitude. They knew that Jiang Tian and the others were cultivators and could help them. However, they also heard that cultivators were very arrogant. They viewed human lives as nothing and treated pills as treasures. They would definitely not help them. Therefore, they didn't open their mouths to beg, so as not to make things difficult for the guests. However, they didn't expect that Jiang Tian would give them pills. Chapter 1537. 3 incense sticks. Is it really that amazing? The little girl looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Her clear eyes flickered. Yes. If I can do it, let me hold you. Jiang Tian said with a smile. This girl reminded him of his daughter. I don't want to be held. I could walk when I was 1. I want to fight monsters like my father. The little girl lifted her nose with great ambition. She might be an excellent huntress in the future, an iron heroine. Then I won't give your father any pills. Jiang Tian said with a serious face. The little girl was so scared that her eyes were filled with tears, and she almost cried. The man and his wife knew that Jiang Tian was joking. They smiled and said, just let me hold you. Don't be shy. All right. I'll do it. The little girl felt wronged. She swore to be a huntress in the future. She was already 2 years old, not a 1-year-old kid. How could she let him hold her? Jiang Tian immediately asked the man to swallow the pills and used his cultivation art to help him refine them. He guided the pills to his wounds and broken bones, dissolving the toxins left by the saber-toothed tiger. Dissolving such natural toxins was a piece of cake for Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian chatted with the man as he did that. He learned that his name was Luo Sen, the grandson of Luo Shou, the village leader. He used to be the most powerful hunter in the village. His body was strong enough to fight with golden core monsters. His youngest daughter was called Luo Fu, which meant that one day she would be able to recover the land and take back the ruins of deity. However, that was just a dream for them. They were mortals in the age of Tao damage and their blood was sealed. After 10,000 years, they were still mortals and couldn't cultivate. They could only eat the flesh of monsters and bathe in blood to strengthen their bodies. He heaved a sigh and wished that he could go to the ruins of deity to fight. Jiang Tian thought to himself. He planned to leave some body-tempering arts for them to improve their power. With hard work, they could become melee masters in 10 years and be able to fight with nascent soul cultivators. In fact, close combat was a cultivation path that was on par with law cultivation in the universe. They didn't condense vital essence, nor did they cultivate dharma laws. They only focused on strengthening their physical bodies. However, in the long history of the Central Galaxy, many powerful figures had been born. There had even been a few immortal emperors. It was just that the progress of body cultivation was slow, and not many people understood it. In fact, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, Luo Sen's broken leg had already recovered. He could run as if he was flying. Everyone was alarmed and came to take a look. Lawson removed the branches and linen that were holding him in place. His wound had recovered completely. Jiang Tian was naturally greeted with a wave of praise and gratitude. They regarded him as an immortal and a god. Thank you, Uncle Jiang. Little Luo Fu excitedly threw himself into Jiang Tian's arms and kissed Jiang Tian's face several times, leaving behind a lot of saliva. Ha, I'll leave you another bottle of these pills. If you're injured, just eat a little. As long as you don't die, you can be saved. Jiang Tian hugged her tiny body and felt warmth in his heart. Perhaps it was the same feeling when hugging a daughter. He was overjoyed and was especially generous. He left behind a huge bottle of healing pills, enough for them to eat for 8 to 10 years. Everyone was overjoyed. Finally, village chief Luo Shou finished his ritual. The mourners heaved a sigh of relief as joyful smiles surfaced on their faces once again. A few burly men began moving the corpses of the ferocious beasts, preparing to bleed and cut them up. There were even some mischievous children who went forward and spat at the kneeling corpses and kicked them fiercely. They were extremely valiant. Jiang Tian had nothing to do, so he walked over and asked curiously, "Who is this Xiao Ziming?" The village chief was known as Old Shou. It's a long story. 10,000 years ago, during the era of Dao damage, the cultivators of the South Gate 1 star invaded the Immortal Land. They first attacked the Immortal Land before attacking Hailan and finally breaching Broken Blade Pass. The million-strong army of our Penglai world was defeated. The Ruins Emperor sent Brother Mingchuan to guard the people of the 300 cities in this world. The natives of the Immortal Land were all fierce men who were unwilling to be slaves. Xiao Ziming, a golden core cultivator from Wanren Mountain, gathered his troops and destroyed 18 enemy cities in one night, robbing hundreds of crystal warships. From then on, he raised his flag and swore to rebel against the Ruins Emperor and take back his homeland. He even met the Ao Emperor. The old man's face was filled with emotions as if countless old stories were surging in his mind. Jiang Tian later learned that the so-called Broken Blade Pass was the meteorite belt where he and Divine Emperor Hanshi had fought. During the era of Dao damage, to resist the invasion of the South Gate 1 star's experts, huge floating cities and fortresses were built there. Countless cultivators were stationed there, densely packed with space warships and flying ships. They had held on for hundreds of years. Countless galactic battles had taken place there. Blood dyed the vast starry sky red. Corpses were densely packed and it was extremely bloody. Countless broken weapons and artifacts floated in the air, densely packed. Therefore, during the era of Dao damage, it was called Broken Blade City or Broken Blade Fortress. Jiang Tian was filled with respect when he heard that. He took out 3 incense sticks, lit them, and stabbed them into the ground under the grave. Then, he bowed 3 times respectfully. "He's your distant ancestor?" Jiang Tian asked. "Speaking of which, he's not. My distant ancestor was a hunter in this place. He hit it off with him at first sight and became his subordinate," the old man said. "Later, my distant ancestor and Xiao Ziming perished. Senior Xiao had no children. Therefore, the mission of guarding his grave has been passed down from generation to generation in our race." Just as he was about to open his mouth, little Luofu's shout came from the direction of the village. "Great-grandpa, Uncle Jiang, it's time for dinner. Let's go. We'll talk about perfected Lord Zhao's story later." The old man brought Jiang Tian back to the village. Little Luofu held his great-grandpa's hand and immediately gave Jiang Tian pointers. He told him about Jiang Tian's gift of pills and Luo Sen's recovery. Luo Shou's face was full of joy. He was very grateful and bowed repeatedly to Jiang Tian to express his gratitude. He didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so generous. The banquet had already been set up. The crude wooden table was placed in the small square in the center of the village. Half of a saber-toothed tiger was placed over the bonfire. The tiger's skin had already been peeled off, and a layer of wild honey was brushed on its skin. It was roasted with wood from a fruit tree, and it was golden brown and fragrant. There were also wild rabbits and wild pheasants. The villagers had brewed their own grain wine. The simple men of the heavenly village smiled and invited the cultivators and distinguished guests to take a seat. "Kid, eat more pai shio meat. Eat more to grow strength. This is a rare and precious meat. Brat, this is saber-toothed tiger meat. With more supplements, your fists will be as hard as iron. Don't eat that useless wild boar meat. Immortal Jiang, please drink more grain wine. Although it's crude, it's good that we brewed it ourselves. It's delicious. Everyone gathered together in a lively atmosphere. They drank large amounts of millet wine and chopped large chunks of saber-toothed tiger meat into strips. They grabbed them with their hands and directly gnawed on them. They ate until their mouths were full of oil and it was full of a wild taste. There was no need to mention that refreshing feeling. Jiang Tian suddenly looked at the sky outside the door and said leisurely, "Village leader Luo, do you have any enemies in the heavenly village?" In the eyes of the ruins of immortality, the Luo family of the heavenly village is just a remnant of the deity ground. They once hunted us for 1,000 years. Luo Shou sighed bitterly. We used to be a big family with tens of thousands of people, but now there are only so many of us left. However, later, we hid in the mountains and stayed away from the world. The divine soldiers and divine generals of the ruins of immortality also gave up on hunting us. It's been peaceful over the past few hundred years. It's not the divine soldiers and divine generals of the ruins of immortality. But there are strong enemies. Judging from their tools, they should be a group of gravediggers. Jiang Tian smiled and said. They're from the Ying family. Luo Shou was shocked and remembered something. The Ying family of the great bandits. They're despicable and shameless. A group of pangolins and rats. They dig holes all day long and dig the graves of other people's ancestors. They're heartless. It's not the first time they've coveted perfected cultivator Zhao's grave. Many of our ancestors were injured by them. We've taken perfected cultivator Zhao's body 3 times, but they still came after us. They've gone too far. Let's fight them. Luo Sen and the others were enraged. They slammed the table and shouted. Many men and even women and children rushed into the stone houses and picked up the weapons hidden in the dark. They looked at the sky and roared, ready to fight to the death with the enemy. They were fierce and hot-blooded. They were going to use their bodies to guard the grave of perfected cultivator Zhao Ziming. He was a hero and they felt that guarding the grave was their mission. They weren't afraid even if they were killed by the great bandits. What a luxurious lineup. There are also a few nascent soul heavenly lords. Jiang Tian also held Luo Fu's hand and walked out of the door with Luo Shou. They stood in the open space in the village with a calm face. Chapter 1538. The Great Koing Family. I think I've heard you mention it before. Jiang Tian seemed to have heard of the family before, but he did not have a deep impression of it. He could not help but glance at Long Shengnan and Sword Venerable Ao Tian. Apart from the heavenly courts, the mortal world, and hell, there are 7 great co-families in the various worlds of the ruins of immortality that resist the ruins emperor. They are quite a powerful faction. Long Shengnan revealed a solemn expression as she introduced them. Their origins are unknown, but their cultivation levels are very powerful. They control the heritage of the ancient heavenly courts. Some of the great co-families even have soul formation experts presiding over them. They are at odds with the ruins emperor and the various heavenly sects and family clans. They occupy their territories and pillage everywhere. They are extremely ferocious. After Long Shengnan's introduction, Jiang Tian had a rough understanding. The 3 great assassin dynasties were cunning foxes. They loved ambushing and assassinating. As for the great co-families, they were a pack of hungry wolves and ferocious tigers. They occupied forbidden lands and set up formations. Every great co controlled tens of thousands of cultivators. They raised their flags and fought with their strength. However, unlike the 3 great assassin dynasties that only targeted the ruins emperor's faction, they bullied the weak with their strength. No matter who one supported or opposed, as long as one had natural treasures, one could be targeted by them and face annihilation. Jiang Tian's expression was calm, but he was somewhat tempted. If these forces were used, they could be a powerful aid. At the very least, they could disrupt the ruins emperor's deployment. Your Excellency, Shengnan, it's not that simple. Ghost Wolf's expression was solemn as he chewed on the jackdaw meat. Actually, with their strength, they are still incomparable to the regular armies of the ruins of immortality's 9 guards. There's a huge gap. However, they have not been wiped out for thousands of years. There's a reason for this. I heard that they seem to control some ancient world-whole teleportation arrays that even the ruins of immortality do not know about. They can easily traverse the various worlds without leaving a trace. In the past, even the 9 guards sent an army to wipe them out. Although they were no match for them, they could still easily retreat. I see, Jiang Tian nodded. If he obtained these world holes, he would at least have the means to protect himself even if he could not defeat the ruins emperor for the time being. At that moment, sharp sword hums and roars of ferocious beasts sounded. Groups of domineering and bloodthirsty experts came from the horizon. They surrounded the heavenly village. There were at least a few hundred people, and almost all of them were at the Golden Core realm. They were very powerful. The leader was actually a dozen nascent soul stage cultivators. Their strength was not inferior to Long Xingnan and Ao Tian Swordmaster. They were not far from Ghost Wolf. Even though they were supreme cultivators, they weren't as ethereal and transcendent as other cultivators. Instead, they rode on top of savage beasts and fierce birds. Their scales were dense and their wings were huge. The roars of the beasts echoed for 10 miles while their murderous intent soared to the sky. This was a group of great bandits whose bodies were suffused with bloody energy. With a single glance, one could tell that their hands had once been dyed in blood. They had stepped over piles of corpses and killed countless people. They had gathered unimaginable killing intent, and there was bloody energy that transformed into the laws of slaughter that coiled around their bodies. Their imposing auras shook the heavens and earth. One after another, savage beasts broke through the void and arrived. The huge wings of the ferocious birds also stirred up the wind and clouds, causing thunder and lightning. The leader of the bandits was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. He was sitting on the head of a giant biped beast, but his cultivation was at the peak stage of the nascent soul stage, not far from the half-step to the soul formation stage. He had a wide mouth and fangs, and his beard was like a steel brush. He looked extremely ugly. His demonic golden vertical pupils were like those of a cold-blooded creature like a poisonous snake. His eyes were cold and there seemed to be no human emotions in them. His eyes were arrogant and his teeth were dense. He was full of ferocity. The cold iron armor around his body was flashing and clanging. He was holding a pair of sharp scissors that looked like crisscrossing canine teeth. 9 blood-red flags floated in the air behind him, as if they were completely condensed by blood energy. After drinking all the blood energy soared into the sky. This is Yi Chun, who has the bloodline of the 9-tailed divine crocodile. He's the young master of the Yi family, one of the 9 bandits. This person is extremely bloody and cruel. He once killed a noble in the ruins of immortality, slaughtered 8 cities and robbed countless heavenly treasures. Long Xingnan was shocked. This was a notorious bandit. Since his ancestors, he had been robbing and killing people for their belongings. He had a long history. He didn't have any rules or scruples when doing things. He killed as he pleased. He was ferocious and wasn't afraid of death. Being able to retreat calmly from a half-step to the soul formation divine general was a headache. I've even suppressed the crocodile ancestor. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a 9-tailed crocodile. It's like a small lizard. Jiang Tian said. The other bandit had a pointy head, a black face, and a pair of sneaky eyes. His slender body was streamlined, and his face, neck, and hands were covered with scales. The nails on his hands were unusually long and slightly curved, shining with cold light like peerless heavenly hooks. He obviously had the bloodline of a demon beast. Yellow earth energy surrounded him, forming laws. Obviously, he was very good at earth cultivation arts. He could break mountains and break the earth with ease. Jiang Tian's divine sense swept over this person, and his expression involuntarily changed. Clearly, this was the first time he had met this person, but he felt a sense of déjà vu. Even his bloodline and aura gave him a very familiar feeling. He's the young master of the Ying family, Ying Long. He's extremely despicable and shameless. He makes a living by digging tombs and robbing tombs. He likes to dig up other people's tombs the most. Everywhere he goes, there are thousands of holes. Ghost Wolf didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He plundered more than 1,000 tombs. He even dug up the imperial mausoleum of the ruins' emperor's lineage. He stole countless treasures and the corpse of a divine lord. He even defecated and peed in the tomb. He even alerted the ruins' emperor. He had once checked the relevant files and even chased after Ing Long, but he didn't catch up with him. He knew Ing Long very well. I'm a fanatical researcher. I only like to study history and take it as my responsibility to straighten out the progress of mankind. I'm committed to becoming a great archaeologist who can reproduce the real history through the underground tombs. At this moment, Ing Long glanced at the villagers of Heavenly Village and said with a righteous face, I heard that perfected cultivator Zhao Ziming's tomb is here. I want to explore it and take out the burial items, turning them into treasures. Don't stop me. I excavate tombs and protect ancient relics. It's all for academic research. I want to clear the fog and restore the truth of history. I don't like to kill people. All of you, quickly retreat. This fellow had a very shameless face. He made his despicable actions of digging tombs and robbing tombs sound extremely noble. Ing Long, Senior Zhao died tragically in battle back then. He didn't leave behind any treasures. Village Chief Luo Shou stepped forward and cupped his fists. Sir, please be magnanimous and let Senior Zhao off this time. Don't let him have no peace after death. No, no, no. You don't understand. Ing Long said very seriously. I've emphasized time and time again that it's not for treasures, but for the sake of researching the truth of history. His death involved the Great War of the era of Dao damage. The people of your world are still being deceived. Besides, it's not up to you to decide if there are any relics or relics. As a historian, I have to dig it up and take a look for myself. This is the empirical spirit of historical research. You are not to touch Senior Zhao's tomb at all. Get out of here. Luo San raised his hand and grabbed a 1,000-kilogram boulder, raised it high, and threw it at Ing Long like a shot put. Clang! Yi Chun pointed in the air, and with a finger, the huge rock immediately exploded in the air, turning into fine powder. How dare you attack the great Ko family? You're courting death. Yi Chun's face was cold and ruthless. He stretched out his hand and raised a 1,000-foot mountain and smashed it at Heavenly Village. At this moment, everyone cried out in surprise, and their faces turned pale from shock. The young and strong men of the Heavenly Village could naturally escape with their powerful physical techniques. However, the women and children, as well as some elderly people, would suffer. They might not be able to resist at all. Chapter 1539. Little Luo Fu clutched Jiang Tian's right hand tightly, his face pale from fright as he shut his eyes tightly. Luo San shouted, Yi Chun, my rule is that tomb robbers don't kill people. Why are you doing this? But it was too late for him to stop him. You're courting death by killing the innocent. Under extreme danger, Jiang Tian's face sank, and he held little Luo Fu in his arms as he took a step forward to meet the attack. With a flick of his sleeve, surging 7th metal true essence pushed out like a raging wave, instantly pushing the enormous mountain far away and shattering it. Rumble. Countless boulders fell on the ground like rain, causing the earth to shake and trees to snap. It was as if a great earthquake had erupted. An expert. I can't believe there's a golden core cultivator in the small heavenly village. At this moment, Yi Chun, Ing Long, and the other great Ko and great bandits were all shocked and incredulous. The heavenly village was just a group of ordinary people with strong bodies. They were far weaker than the cultivators of the great bandits. It was as if a Harvard student had appeared in a poor village where everyone was illiterate. It was really surprising. Ing Long, you're such a busybody. Why do you have so many rules? Yi Chun's demonic vertical pupils revealed a mocking expression as he laughed sinisterly. He's a golden core perfected cultivator after all. Do you think he'll let you take away his ancestors' treasure? He has to be killed. Ah, brother, just step back. I'm really doing research and archaeology. I won't hurt Senior Zhao's body. Ying Long tried to persuade Jiang Tian. He didn't want to see Jiang Tian die. He was a thief and didn't kill people. Beating people was his limit. If he hadn't met Yi Chun and the other party hadn't insisted on robbing him, he would have dug it out secretly when no one was around. That would have been perfect. Do you think you're so great just because there's a golden core cultivator in the heavenly village? In the end, you're just a mortal ant who can't cultivate. You don't know how high the sky is. A nascent soul realm bandit was full of disdain. He took out a golden pestle and threw it at Jiang Tian. They were all bandits who had traversed the various worlds. They killed people like scything flax and made a name for themselves by stepping on piles of bones. They had even dared to provoke the ruins Emperor's palace and the 9 guards. They had seen all sorts of situations and had killed countless golden core cultivators. Why would they think anything of them? That nascent soul bandit was also extremely ruthless. It was normal for him to kill people and steal their treasures. His weapons, Dharma treasures and even the beast he was riding were all stolen. Countless golden core perfected lords had died in his hands. This precious pestle was also a quasi-true artifact. It contained metal laws, and as it smashed down, golden light pervaded the air like a river of light. It poured down in torrents, and the rumbling of laws was enough to turn everything within 10 li into fine powder. Qi La. Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. This time, he truly made a move. He pointed at the air. Rumble. A beam of golden light was shot out like a cannonball, instantly breaking the golden curtain and tearing apart the laws. It penetrated the nascent soul realm bandit's body and even destroyed his nascent soul. That was a shocking scene. A rain of blood was falling from the sky. Broken bones and pieces of internal organs were flying everywhere, and the airwaves caused by the explosion of the nascent soul were surging like tides. Jiang Tian had killed a nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. Everyone was completely shocked. He killed a mid-stage nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. Who is he? Be careful. This kid hid his power. He killed a nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. He's obviously a peak stage or even a peak stage heavenly lord. Many bandits looked at Jiang Tian in shock, as if they were looking at a devil. They used to be invincible on a second-class planet like Hai Lan and even dared to go to the ruins of deity. When they went to a desolate planet like Penglai, they were like city people playing in the countryside. They didn't take it seriously at all. After all, the most powerful person there, Sword Master Outyen, was only an early-stage nascent soul heavenly lord and there was only one of him in this world. What did they have to be afraid of? But they had never thought that an overlord would suddenly appear and kill a nascent soul heavenly lord when they were facing a group of ordinary people in Heavenly Village. Boom! The giant beasts galloped, and the vicious birds flapped their wings. Their team hurriedly changed from attacking to defending, and formed a battle formation. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian vigilantly. Kid, who are you? Did you come from the heavenly world? In fact, even Yi Chun was shocked. His face was unprecedentedly serious and cold light flashed in his eyes as he scanned Jiang Tian. Even though he was a peak-stage nascent soul realm cultivator, he knew he couldn't kill a nascent soul realm bandit with a finger. You don't deserve to know my name. Jiang Tian sneered and snorted with disdain in his eyes. You're used to killing innocent people and robbing people, right? How dare you bully me? I'll give you 2 choices. You can kneel and surrender, or I'll kill you. Seeing how powerful Jiang Tian was, Ying Long quickly stopped Yi Chun and said with his immortal will, forget it. Forget it, brother Yi, let's retreat. I'll come back at night to investigate secretly. I won't hurt or kill anyone. Even the scene is perfect. That's what an archaeologist should do. Get out of my way. Yi Chun waved his hand and pushed Ying Long away. His face was as cold as iron and his eyes were cold and ruthless. Today, I'll kill this person. I'll skin him alive and extract his divine soul to refine in the demonic fire seed for 1,000 years to avenge my brother. Yi Chun roared, so hateful that his demonic vertical pupils turned completely red. How could the right-hand man of the nascent soul realm bandit, who had lost his mind and died, spare Jiang Tian? He brazenly attacked, raising the crocodile scissors and cutting. An enormous crocodile that was over 300 meters long appeared in the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun like a small mountain. It was completely formed from true essence controlled by the laws, and its 9 tails swayed in unison, shaking heaven and earth. It opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Jiang Tian. This was not his Dharma form, but the weapon spirit of the quasi-genuine weapon. It was formed by the Dharma power and the Dharma power. Even if it was broken, it would not hurt him. Uncle Jiang, I'm scared. The little girl was frightened and trembled slightly. After all, she was high in the sky at this time, and the crocodile that the bandits had shot out was 10 times more terrifying than the crocodile she had seen before. Don't be afraid. These are just things that Uncle can blow up with one punch. Look, Uncle will set off fireworks for you to see. Jiang Tian held the little girl in his hand and slowly raised his jade-white fist with his left hand and punched out. Gung Jin Divine Fist. This punch had no smoke or fire aura, no power to speak of. It was like an old man doing morning exercises in the park. But suddenly, there was a terrible whistling sound in the sky. The whistling sound was getting louder and louder, as if a hurricane had passed through. A fist made of Gung Jin true essence rushed out of the void out of thin air. It was getting bigger and bigger, more and more solid. In a flash, the mountain-like fist instantly smashed on the 9-tailed giant crocodile. Roar! The huge crocodile did not even hold on for a second. It let out a sad roar and burst open unwillingly. A huge mushroom cloud rose in the sky, and sparks splashed everywhere. It was like fireworks blooming in the daytime. The billowing airwaves pushed in all directions, shaking the mountains and breaking countless trees. Wow! Uncle Jiang's fireworks are so beautiful. And it's a crocodile. The little girl Luo Fu's face was full of surprise. She pointed with her little finger and a pair of big watery eyes were wide open. She blinked and couldn't get enough of it. These fireworks were much bigger than the fireworks set off by her great-grandfather during the holidays. It was too imposing and spectacular. Chapter 1540. The crocodile scissors in Yi Chun's hand instantly cracked and turned into pieces. A quasi-Dao artifact had been destroyed by the artifact spirit. Yi Chun and the Zouwu under him were pushed a few hundred meters away by the Dharma power. For a time, men and horses were thrown off their feet. Many of the bandits were thrown into chaos. Everyone was like a withered leaf fluttering in the wind. The powerful shockwave struck them, and they felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if their chests had been hit by a giant hammer. Those with lower cultivation levels even had their protective magical artifacts shattered. They instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the golden core cultivators fainted. All golden core cultivators, step back. Nascent soul cultivators, come with me. Yi Chun couldn't accept the defeat. He was too arrogant and didn't understand the concept of taking a step back. He waved his arms, and the blood-red flag behind him exploded with a terrifying wave of energy. It soared into the sky and charged towards Jiang Tian. Those large banners suddenly swayed, sweeping through the sky. Everywhere they passed, spatial cracks were everywhere, winding in the void like a spider web. It was a long flag that fluttered in the wind. The pole of the flag was like the sharpest spear and the surface of the flag imitated the swaying of a crocodile tail. It even imitated Dharma laws. If a golden core cultivator was affected, his body and divine soul would be instantly destroyed. Even nascent soul cultivators wouldn't be able to protect themselves if they were pierced by the pole. Kill. Let them know that the bandit family isn't just for show. So what if he's a nascent soul heavenly lord? Let's attack him as a group. Even if we are tired, we must tire him to death. We've dominated the ruins of deity and even dared to attack the 9 guards of the emperor's palace. We've killed countless nobles. Why should we be afraid of him? At the same time, more than a dozen nascent soul stage bandits and nascent soul stage bandits all lunged at Jiang Tian crazily. They had all been through killing and had been tempered by war. Although they were cruel and bloody, they had their own principles. For example, to never be afraid of battle, to regard the glory of the great bandits as more important than their own lives. For example, to unite as one and trust their backs to their comrades. For example, to seek revenge at all costs. Even if they were to lose 1,000 men, they would still injure the enemy by 800. These rules were very different from those of cultivators who came from sects or clans. They didn't have blood ties or inheritances, so they had to engrave these rules and ideals into their bones. Otherwise, there would be no unity to speak of. At this moment, they'd faintly noticed that the outcome of their battle with Jiang Tian pointed towards disaster. However, none of them retreated, and they were brave and domineering to the extreme. More than a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords attacking at the same time was a terrifying scene. For a time, the most common elemental laws, the mutant laws, and even the laws of various demonic beasts and vicious birds all appeared, intertwining with each other like a giant net that covered the sky and covered the earth as it flooded towards Jiang Tian. Open! Jiang Tian pressed his fingers together and waved as he utilized the energy of the laws. The blade of the laws of gung metal swept out like a waterfall of the Milky Way, and it seemed to be capable of slicing through the chaos and dividing yin and yang. It was capable of destroying everything and was sharp to the extreme. Qi La. Qi La. The giant net, formed by the laws of a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords, was broken by Jiang Tian's blade of the laws of gung metal. Little girl, don't look. I'm going to kill these invaders next. Jiang Tian took a step forward and revealed a kind smile as he reminded little Luo Fu in a gentle voice, and then his gaze turned cold as he pointed forward. Bang! The head of a nascent soul bandit exploded. Even his nascent soul didn't manage to escape and was instantly crushed into powder by the laws of gung metal. His headless body fell from the sky with a rain of blood. Qi La. Then, Jiang Tian waved his fingers. The laws of Kunpeng created a crack with a radius of 1,000 feet, which spread out in the shape of a fan and could cut through everything. Qi La. The bodies of 2 nascent soul heavenly lords cracked and their inch-sized nascent souls floated out, screaming. They were then killed by Jiang Tian. At this moment, the 9 blood-red banners shot out explosively. The sharp flagpoles and spears pierced towards Jiang Tiandong. The smell of blood was extremely thick, and the banner that was completely condensed from the essence blood of an expert was extremely tough. It was like a red snake that coiled around, covering the sky and covering the sun as it tried to bind Jiang Tian. Break! Jiang Tian threw another punch. He didn't use any divine powers or laws. He fought with his body. This was the boldness of the strong. The 9 blood-red banners, which were originally extremely tough and durable, were torn to shreds by the fist energy like paper. The flagpole, which was made of an unknown type of precious metal, was also tragically snapped like a hemp pole. After all, this was the fist energy of a transcendent divine physique, which could even tear space apart. How can this kid's punch be so terrifying? Young master, let's retreat. It's never too late to take revenge. The rest of the nascent soul heavenly lords were shocked and wanted to retreat. The scene of Jiang Tian using his physical body to destroy 9 quasi-true treasure flags was too shocking. It made it impossible for them to estimate Jiang Tian's strength. I told you to retreat. Retreat. Why did you have to fight with him? Great, we're all dead now. Ying Long said angrily. I came here secretly to do the archaeology and finished it. Why did you have to come here and rob me? I can't accept this. The moment the 9 crimson flags were destroyed by Jiang Tian, Yi Chun was seriously affected. He felt something in his throat and almost spurted out blood, but he still wanted to kill Jiang Tian. His eyes were full of viciousness. You can't accept this. You won't be able to accept this after I kill you. He saw that Jiang Tian had changed from defense to offense. He stepped on the air and moved 10 miles in a blink. Whoosh! His black hair fluttered in the wind. He clenched his right hand and a peerless thunder blade appeared. There were countless talisman arrays on it. The thunder art was young and was also the bane of monster cultivators. It could beat them back to their original form and even make them return to their ancestral form. It could disperse their dharma power and kill them easily. Clang! Jiang Tian's moves were simple and violent, as if he was going to split Mount Hua. He raised his purple lightning thunder blade high up in the air and slashed down like a heavenly river. Part of Jiang Tian's thunder laws came from the bloodline of the divine beast Thunder Centipede, while the other part was formed from the Taotia's return to origin thunder tribulations. It contained a massive amount of nascent soul thunder tribulations, which was extremely terrifying and powerful. Its destructive power was unparalleled. Jiang Tian controlled the Dharma laws and attacked very quickly. All his attacks were as easy and natural as if they were at his fingertips. Protect the young master. Kill. The great bandits of the Yi family were loyal and fearless of death. 5 nascent soul stage cultivators shot into the sky at the same time, and they even took the initiative to stop Jiang Tian's guard, Yi Chun. Rumble. They didn't hesitate to detonate their nascent souls and create an earth-shattering wave of essence chi to attack the purple thunder blade. This was an incomparably tragic scene. 5 nascent souls exploded in a row, which was comparable to at least 10 large nuclear weapons. The sky was shaking, the sun and the moon were upside down, and the world was in chaos. Space cracks were everywhere and everything within 100 miles was shaking. Many beasts were trembling and crouching on the ground. Those nearby even exploded. If it weren't for Jiang Tian activating a barrier to protect the Heavenly Village's villagers during the battle, and Long Xingnan also activating the Emperor Nine Dragon's law to form a dragon shield, the Heavenly Village's villagers would have been turned into dust immediately. No! Yi Chun roared. His vertical pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip and tears of blood flowed down his face. He gritted his teeth and regretted it to the extreme. He didn't expect that his hesitation would kill 5 of his close comrades and loyal followers. That was a great loss. Chapter 1541. There were only about 20 nascent soul cultivators in the Yi clan. Now, he had lost 5 of them. Moreover, these brothers had fought with him in the past. They were as close as real brothers. Now that they had died, how could he not feel pain? However, even if their nascent souls self-destructed, they only managed to tear a crack on Jiang Tian's purple lightning saber and stop it from slashing down for a moment. The next moment, with a clang, the purple lightning saber tore through the self-destructing nascent souls and slashed down at Yi Chun. Big brother! Run! Young master, run! Ying Long and the remaining nascent souls protected Yi Chun and ran. They had already realized that Jiang Tian's strength was enough to crush them. The other Golden Core cultivators and bandits were also scared out of their wits, and they all ran away. They hated that their parents had not given birth to them with 2 more legs. You want to run? Can you guys run? Jiang Tian sneered and pointed at Yi Chun's back. The Sea Calming Ice God's laws were instantly executed. At this time, the Sea Calming Ice God's laws had completely absorbed and refined the Xianming Cold Spring, becoming a nomological true seal. It was easy to execute, and its power was more than 10 times the original. Crack! As Jiang Tian pointed in the air, the space within 100 meters around Yi Chun suddenly froze and turned into an iron plate. Yi Chun, who was in the middle of it, found it difficult to even move his fingers, let alone escape. He was like a specimen in amber, completely still. However, his consciousness was still there. He screamed in his heart, "This is the most powerful spatial law. Heavens! This person's physical body, divine sense, and laws are all extremely powerful. Moreover, there is more than one law. How can there be such a freak and monster in the world?" At this moment, his heart was filled with deep fear and regret. If he had known that this person was so strong, he would not have offended him. He should not have come to this place. At this moment, whoosh! Traversing 1,000 mountains. Yinglong let out a roar, and his entire being transformed into a huge Dharma form of pangolin. The golden scales all over his body vibrated and then closed tightly. His body spun rapidly, and his sharp head drilled into the fixed space like a diamond drill. His claws danced wildly like heavenly knives, tearing out pieces of space fragments. This kid is amazing. Jiang Tian's heart moved slightly, but he did not stop him. The sea-calming ice god's forbidden domain that he had just used was only 1/10 of his strength. The area was very small, and the laws he had released were not solid enough. However, this was the first time someone had been able to break through his sea-calming ice god's spatial laws. Moreover, this brat was at the nascent soul realm. It seemed that he had the innate bloodline ability of the pangolin, which was terrifyingly powerful. No wonder he was able to enter and exit the imperial mausoleum of the ruins of immortality, which was heavily guarded and filled with countless forbidden formations. He really did have some skill. After a full 3 seconds, Yinglong finally opened up a passage in the frozen space and dragged Yi Chun out. Why didn't he do anything? At this moment, he also felt very strange because 3 seconds was not short for cultivators. With Jiang Tian's strength, it was enough to kill him 10 times. However, in a hurry, his life was in danger, and he didn't have time to think carefully. He went into the mountain with a swoosh and disappeared in a blink. Master, we can't let these people go easily, or we'll be releasing a tiger back to the mountain. Ghost Wolf said to Jiang Tian with his immortal will. Can he run away? Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously. Back then, when he was deep in the magma on Earth, the Kunpeng golden core had just been condensed and it could cross the endless magma crust and return. Yinglong's pangolin bloodline was indeed powerful and the laws he controlled were also terrifying, but compared with the Kunpeng's laws that could destroy 3,000 worlds, he was just a mouse that was not worth mentioning at all. Ghost Wolf hurriedly shut his mouth. His surname is also Ying. In the ancient cultivation world, the surname Ying was said to be derived from Yinglong, which was the earth of the 5 elements. So, pangolin, earth-drilling mouse and other demonic cultivators like to use this surname to make themselves look good. However, Ying Ziyu's surname was said to be given by Emperor Zhongli himself. However, Jiang Tian's heart slightly moved. Could this kid be Ying Ziyu's descendant or of the same race? Originally, Jiang Tian wanted to kill this guy directly, but thinking of this, he had to be merciful. Besides, whether it was Yinglong or Yi Chun, these big bandits were actually subverters and rebels of the world order of the ruins of immortality. Although they were reckless and cruel, they belonged to a group of forces that could be united, used and transformed. Thinking of this, the 30-foot divine disc suddenly bloomed behind Jiang Tian and the Kunpeng's laws of speed suddenly lit up and were released. I'll catch. I'll catch. I'll drill. I'll drill. Open. 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 At this time, in the depths of the earth thousands of miles away, Yinglong was quickly waving his claws and turning his body, activating the earth escape technique and the earth opening technique. The moment the endless rocks and soil felt the earth opening technique, they separated like flowing water and even like air. His speed was terrifying. Like a golden streamer, he quickly shuttled through the ground and traveled hundreds of miles in an instant. He shouldn't be able to catch up with me. Yinglong was exhausted after unleashing the power of laws for such a long time. His nascent soul was burned to the point that it almost cracked. The consumption was extremely serious, and he was panting heavily. At this time, he had run thousands of miles away and felt a little safer. After he breathed a sigh of relief, he couldn't help but curse angrily. Damn you, Yi Chun. I came here to do archaeology and historical research. I was free and elegant. Why did you have to follow me and make such a big fuss and offend a peak-stage nascent soul realm master? If it weren't for you, I would have gotten those precious relics. Yi Chun, who was tied to his back with primordial chi and laws, cried silently and gritted his teeth. He didn't say a word, grieving for his dead brothers. Okay, don't cry. Yinglong couldn't bear it and comforted him. It's not your fault. That punk is so ferocious. He will probably attack us the moment he sees us. Fuck, the heavenly village is such a poor and remote place. It has never been able to cultivate. How did such an expert appear? It's too sinister. When we return and your father asks, we will speak in unison. We will say that we encountered a divine general from the ruins Emperor's palace and fought with them. Your father hates the ruins Emperor's royal family the most. I believe he won't punish us. As for those who died, it's useless even if you cry. I might as well dig a few more tombs and give them some compensation. Yi-chun remained silent for a long time. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and shouted. No. I want revenge. My brothers can't die unjustly. I'll tell my father the truth. Even if he kills me, I don't care at all. However, I request my father to head to the lower realm and kill that cultivator from the heavenly village. Avenge them. Chapter 1542. Revenge? Do you think you still have a chance? Right at this moment, a bright streak of light suddenly shot out from the ground in front of him. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning. Fuck, this guy is here. Yinglong was shocked and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The flowing light was like a peerless heavenly blade, easily cutting through the thick soil and mountain rocks. It turned into a Kuan-Pan godly spirit with a human head and a bird body. Its steel-like claws suddenly grabbed Yinglong and Yi-chun like an eagle grabbing a chick. Break! Break! Yinglong struggled crazily and used all kinds of secret space arts, trying to tear the giant claws and escape. But it was not necessary at all. He only felt the ground rumble and the soil spread like water waves. In an instant, his eyes lit up and he had returned to the sky above the heavenly village. Clang! Clang! Yinglong and Yi-chun were heavily smashed to the ground, smashing out two huge craters. They were dizzy from the fall. Then, a shackle formed by the ice god's law was placed on them and they were firmly imprisoned, unable to move at all. You still want to run? How fast do you think you can run? Jiang Tian stepped on the air and flew over. His long black hair fluttered in the wind and his clothes fluttered as he looked down at the two of them mockingly. Kill me if you have the guts. Yi-chun stiffened his neck and gnashed his teeth. He looked like a bandit as he threatened fiercely. The Yi family of the Great Ko is not to be trifled with. If there is a need for revenge, I will kill all the savages in the heavenly village and even the entire Thousand Mountains range. Smack! Jiang Tian slapped him in the face, making his nose bleed and he flew a few hundred meters away like a wheel. Is the Yi family of the Great Ko so great? They are just a few stinky crocodiles who rob people. How dare they challenge me? What's different about you? I can still beat you. Jiang Tian rubbed his palms and mocked. It's different. You're just thick-skinned. Your skin is rough and your flesh is thick like the corner of a city wall. It hurts my palms. You. Yi-chun clenched his teeth, only to find that his teeth had fallen out. He was enraged to the extreme. His vertical pupils glared at Jiang Tian with hatred. In any case, he was still a member of the Great Ko clan. Who dared to humiliate him like this? Still not submitting. I'll kill you. The divine disc behind Jiang Tian's back flashed, and the vermilion bird true flame burst out, wanting to burn him to ashes. Wait. We're people with backing. Yinglong stopped him and snorted coldly. Backstage? Jiang Tian stabilized the vermilion bird primordial fire laws. Balls of flames were firmly fixed less than 3 meters away from Yi-chun, humming with interest. Kid, you're really strong. You've killed quite a few of our nascent soul brothers. You have the guts to even provoke the Great Ko clan. Yinglong knelt on the ground, but he still straightened his neck and said proudly, however, no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than Kang Tae-chu? No matter how fierce you are, can you be fiercer than him? Kang Tae-chu, go out and find out what kind of person he is. He even killed the 3 guards of the ruins of immortality. Even Prince Chun Yu was killed. Even Grand Chancellor Yan Hua didn't dare to fight him and ran away with his tail between his legs. 2 days ago, he even killed the divine Emperor Hanshi in this world. He's an overlord of a generation. May I ask if you're afraid of him? Kang Tae-chu is indeed very strong, but what does that have to do with you? Jiang Tian was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you know that Kang Tae-chu is my big brother? We're sworn brothers. We're so close that we wear the same pants. Ying Long did not know what half a dime meant, but he could roughly understand. His face was full of arrogance and pride. He was so arrogant that there was no end to it. We even drank together last night. He values my research results about the ancient Tao dynasty very much. He even called me his good brother. He anxiously roared with a pale face, to tell you the truth, it was he who personally instructed me to come here to conduct an archaeological excavation. Do you want to go against him? He's the emperor of this world now. At this moment, Luo Shou, Luo Sen, and the others looked at each other and showed some fear. Luo Shou frowned and said, if Kang Tae-chu really asked him to excavate perfected cultivator Zhao's tomb for archaeological research, we can't be too stubborn. After all, it's also very important to uncover the truth of history. Perfected cultivator Zhao's spirit in heaven will also understand. Ha! Jiang Tian was overjoyed. This kid was also a funny person. He actually bragged that he knew him. Why didn't he know him? He even said that he asked him to excavate the tomb. How shameless. Next to him, Long Shengnan and Bai Muxue also covered their mouths and laughed. They only thought that this Ying Long was too funny. What are you laughing at? My brother Kang Tae-chu is coming. Can you stop him? Seeing their strange expressions, Ying Long was enraged. Then, he softened his tone and said with disdain, brother, a wise man submits to circumstances. You're definitely no match for Kang Tae-chu. He'll kill you with one finger. Besides, we didn't cause any losses. Instead, many of my brothers were killed by you. Don't go too far. Let us go and treat us with good wine and meat. I'll plead for you in front of my brother Tai-chu. Bullshit. Keep bragging. Zhang Qingyang snickered and flew forward, kicking him in the chest. Ying Long rolled on the ground and said fiercely, little bastard, you're just a golden core cultivator. How dare you hit your nascent soul grandpa? If my brother Kang Tae-chu comes, shut up. Zhang Qingyang interrupted him ruthlessly and pointed at Jiang Tian. You're blind. The Tai-chu Divine Lord is right in front of you, but you don't know him. Do you want to die? G.A. Yi Chun looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Then, the shock on his face gradually turned into extreme admiration. He said loudly, You're the Tai-chu Divine Lord. You are my idol. By then, Jiang Tian's name had almost spread across the entire ruins of deity. Not only were the descendants of the ruins emperor shocked, but he was also a well-known figure. In the Great Ko clan, it was like thunder to the ears. Who didn't know about it? However, unlike the ruins of deity, most people in the Deku family regarded Kang Tae-chu as their idol and comrade. In their eyes, Jiang Tae-chu was a great bandit as well, and he was even ferocious and overbearing, not inferior to them in the slightest. It's really Kang Tae-chu. Ying Long was also dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. It couldn't be such a coincidence. He had robbed countless tombs of perfected cultivators, but today, he had run into Kang Tae-chu. However, on second thought, there was only one nascent soul cultivator in this world, Sword Venerable Ao Tian. Why would a peerless heavenly lord suddenly appear? Besides, this person controlled a lot of laws, which was the same as the rumor that Kang Tae-chu was only at the nascent soul level, but he could control many laws and fight with soul formation cultivators. It was very likely. I'm Long Xingnan, the saintess of the dragon-rearing sect in the Hailan world and the disciple of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Long Xingnan took a step forward and executed the laws of the 9 dragons. True dragons of laws surrounded her body and her aura was earth-shattering. Ying Long was so frightened that his face trembled. I'm Sword Venerable Ao Tian, the Realm Master of Penglai World, a small cultivator under the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Sword Venerable Ao Tian also took a step forward and executed the laws of sword energy. Peerless swords of laws rushed into the sky as if they were going to break the sky. In the end, I'm Gui Lang, the captain of the Dark Crow Guards in the ruins of deity. I'm now under the command of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Gui Lang also took a step forward and waved his air-piercing blade, easily displaying the laws of space. Do you still not believe me? Get down on your knees and surrender. Ying Long had been chased by Gui Lang before. Even though he was far away, he could still feel his energy and laws. Then, he no longer had any doubts. The young man in front of him was the famous Kang Te Chu. Damn, what a disgrace. It's really Kang Te Chu. For a moment, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to hide in a hole and disappear in front of everyone. He had bragged that he was Qin Haodong's good brother and that he had gotten his permission to drink with him. He had never thought that Qin Haodong would be right in front of him. Oh God! Everyone in the heavenly village couldn't believe it either. They had never thought that they would be able to eat and drink with Kang Te Chu. When I first saw him, I only thought he looked ordinary, but his energy was extraordinary. When his identity was revealed, he was indeed extraordinary. Luo Shou stroked his goatee and trembled with excitement. He's actually the great hero Kang Te Chu, the Kang Te Chu who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Sen and the other young hunters couldn't believe it. Their eyes were filled with worship, as if they were believers who had seen a god. Uncle Jiang is a great hero. The great hero who defeated the divine general and divine emperor of the ruins of immortality. The great hero who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Fu and the children cheered excitedly and jumped up and down. However, compared to shame, Ying Long's heart was filled with fear. Jiang Taichu was a famous peerless fiend who could easily annihilate clans, sects, armies, and everything. Whether it was the 9 guards of the ruins emperor or the 100 Moon Academy's chancellor, they were all wiped out when they met Kang Te Chu. Even divine emperor Hanshi was killed by him. But today, he had offended him time and time again, and had spoken rudely to him. As a divine lord of the divinity transformation stage, how could he allow others to blaspheme him so easily? He would definitely kill Yi Chun and himself to protect his peerless dignity. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but tremble, and the scales all over his body made a clanging sound. He said with a sobbing voice, Grand Primordium Divine Lord, I didn't mean to offend you today. I'm really here for archaeological research. Please spare me this once. Grand Primordium Divine Lord, if you want to punish me, kill me. Yi Chun straightened his body and said fearlessly, Ying Long is indeed an expert. Ying Long is indeed an archaeologist. He only excavates tombs, but he never kills people. I'm the one who caused all of this. You sure aren't afraid of death? Jiang Tian's expression was cold as he nodded in his heart. In fact, the strong were respected. It was common for powerful cultivators to bully the weak and kill others for their treasures. Be it Yi Chun or Ying Long, they were not bad in nature despite having their flaws. At the very least, Yi Chun was very loyal. I'm afraid. Yi Chun trembled but he still said loudly with tears in his eyes, but I can't harm my brother. But I can't harm my brother. I will take responsibility for my own actions. You saw it too. Ying Long did not kill you from the beginning to the end. I believe that with Grand Primordium Divine Lord's magnanimity, you will definitely not make things difficult for him. Alright. You want to be a hero? I'll grant you your wish. Jiang Tian waved his hand and condensed the gung metal nomological laws into a saber before slashing down. Chapter 1543. Ying Long, I'll take my leave first. Yi Chun had a look of despair as he closed his eyes and shouted with tears streaming down his face, "In my next life, let's fight the universe again and kill the Ruins Emperor together." "Fuck, you are still bragging." Ying Long had a sorrowful expression as he sighed regretfully. "In your next life, don't be so rash. Kill whoever you want. Once you encounter an expert, it's very easy to die." Everyone thought that Jiang Tian would kill Yi Chun with a single strike. But to their surprise, with two crisp cracking sounds, the law shackles on Yi Chun and Ying Long's bodies cracked and disappeared. "Senior Grand Primordium, why you won't kill me?" Yi Chun was dumbfounded and filled with disbelief. "I, Kang Tae Chu, might be infamous for fighting in the universe, but I'm not someone who kills the innocent." Jiang Tian had a calm expression as he said unhurriedly, "You have done well in resisting the Ruins Emperor. Just based on that, I'll give you a chance. Grand Primordium Divine Lord is indeed a Divine Lord." "You are so magnanimous." Ying Long was overjoyed as he pulled Yi Chun to Jiang Tian. They bowed respectfully and said in unison, "Divine Lord, this life of yours is yours. From now on, I'm willing to serve under Senior Grand Primordium and be at your beck and call. No one will dare disobey your orders. To tell you the truth, I want to destroy the Ruins Emperor and wipe out all evil. With the war about to begin, it's indeed time to use people." Jiang Tian said leisurely, "However, my team is a revolutionary army. But my troop is a revolutionary troop. It is a troop that fights to reclaim our homeland and to protect the common people. We have discipline and rules. Not just any bandit can join us. I'd rather go without than have something substandard. If you can't abide by my rules, it's best you go your separate ways. As long as Senior Grand Primordium is willing to take us in and lead us to conquer the ruins of immortality, we will abide by the rules no matter how strict they are. We won't dare violate them." The two said without hesitation. "All right. Get up." Jiang Tian agreed and said leisurely, "Senior Grand Primordial Divine Lord Zhao Yong fought against his homeland. True Monarch Zhao is a predecessor who fought to protect his homeland. You are not allowed to touch his tomb." "Understood." After Ying Long and Yi Chun got up, they said in an orderly manner, "My lord, where should we attack next? Our great cozy clan has long been impatient to follow Senior Tai Chu into the battlefield." Yi Chun said impatiently. The Deku family had been in conflict with the Ruins Emperor's lineage for many years. Both sides had suffered casualties and the grudge ran deep. Yi Chun was eager to seek revenge. "I haven't prepared enough. I haven't reached the level where I can compete with a peak-stage Divine Transformation Realm warrior. I have to break through to the nascent Soul Realm as soon as possible." Jiang Tian said indifferently, "Now, we have a rough idea of the wood-type material. It's the pearl grass tree from the Steel Forest Forbidden Area. But it's still a water-type material." Yi Chun immediately patted his chest and said passionately, "Don't worry about it. My great Ko family has burned, killed, and plundered for thousands of years, and has accumulated quite a lot. The 7 great pirate families are willing to open their treasury to the Lord. If Senior needs anything, you can use it as you wish. It's our honor. What I need is extraordinary. It's either the blood of 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls, or immortal and divine materials. You might not have them." Jiang Tian said with a wry smile. 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls. Immortal and divine materials. Yi Chun's eyes almost popped out when he heard that. As far as he knew, although the Yi clan and the other great pirate families had a strong foundation, they might not have materials of such level. "Let's go back and report to the family. If we have them, we'll definitely inform you." Ying Long said. "Even if we don't have them, we'll think of a way to search for them. We'll find them even if we have to turn the ruins of immortality upside down." Yi Chun's blood boiled as he said excitedly with a face full of anticipation. "When the time comes, the 7 great pirate families will join forces with Senior Tai Chu. We'll conquer the ruins of immortality together and overthrow the Ruins Emperor's throne. Yi Chun took out a jade slip and handed it to Jiang Tian. On it was information about the territories the 7 great pirate families occupied in the various worlds, strongholds, secret signals, and so on. Then, he gave Jiang Tian a runic token and said solemnly, "Senior, this is the token of the 7 great pirate families' alliance. If you need any help, just look for our strongholds. They will make the appropriate arrangements." Jiang Tian took it and asked, "Actually, I've always been curious. I've always been very curious. What exactly are the origins of your 7 great pirate clans? It should be related to the ancient heavenly courts, right? Senior, your plans are flawless." "Exactly." Yi Chun's face was filled with admiration as he said, "The 7 great pirates were originally descendants of the heavenly masters and divine generals of the ancient heavenly courts. For example, my family is a descendant of Patriarch Heavenly Crocodile, Yi Gongming, one of the 10 divine generals. As for Ing Long, he's a descendant of divine general Ing Zihui. Back then, after the breaking era, many worlds were embedded in the orbit of Alpha Centauri. The world was in chaos, with volcanoes erupting, floods, earthquakes, and snow disasters constantly erupting. It was like the beginning of chaos. More than half of the cultivators and mortals died. Following that, it was the era of Tao damage. Many gods of the ancient heavenly courts suddenly realized that the cultivation techniques they cultivated in were in conflict with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They could not produce even a tenth of their strength. Yet, the Ruins Emperor's lineage invaded from Alpha Centauri without any prior notice. They destroyed the immortal ground and shook the foundation. Ancient sages like Ao Emperor perished one after another. Their defeat was like a landslide. The 4 heavenly masters and 10 divine generals perished. Their descendants could only lay low and conceal their identities. They endured silently and struggled to survive, avoiding the Ruins Emperor's pursuit. However, the glorious achievements of our ancestors and the blood feud were not forgotten by the juniors. After thousands of years of accumulation, we gradually recovered our strength and accumulated the means to fight the Ruins Emperor, allowing us to rise once again. We brandished our swords brazenly and took over the mountains as kings. We burned, killed, and plundered everywhere. To put it simply, we sought the Ruins Emperor's wrath and gradually made a name for ourselves as the 7 great pirate families. So all of you are from famous lineages. You have extraordinary origins. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, then smiled and said, "However, we still need to pay attention to strategy." The so-called strategy of war, in a nutshell, was to reduce the number of enemies and increase the number of people on one side. All of you will only incur the wrath of the heavens and the wrath of man if you keep on killing. You need to find a target. Our enemy is the Ruins Emperor. The other factions, those who resist the Ruins Emperor, as well as those who are neutral, can be united and used. I understand. After meeting my father, I will definitely pass on your advice. Yi Chun said reverently. Jiang Tian suddenly looked at Ing Long and asked, "Ing Long, is there a person named Ing Ziyu in your genealogy?" "He's one of my distant ancestors. He's the brother of my distant ancestral land's god Ing Ziyu." "Senior, how do you know him?" Ing Long was perplexed. "I once met him on Earth in the solar system," Jiang Tian sighed wistfully. He immediately recounted how he had entered the Tunguska Fiend Lake and met the excavation vanguard, as well as how he had received their aid. 3,000 warriors, digging deep into the earth, slumbering in the core, for 100,000 years, their corpses remain, their obsessions undying. Their shouts are as magnificent as a song. After hearing the story of his ancestor, Ing Long was deeply moved. He was astounded. Compared to the bloody struggles of his ancestors, the tomb digging he was proud of was nothing worth mentioning. After Ing Long and Yi Chun bade farewell and left, Jiang Tian left the heavenly village a set of body-tempering cultivation techniques and many protective treasures. Under the reluctant gazes of the heavenly village's villagers and little Luofu's gentle sobs, they flew towards the forbidden land of the Steels. A day passed in the blink of an eye. In the central region of the mountain range, peaks that were more than 100,000 feet tall rose from the ground. They were like gigantic swords that pierced the heavens. They had a very sharp aura. And looking down from high in the sky, between the peaks was a gigantic tree that was 10,000 feet tall. It looked like it was carved out of jade. Its leaves and branches were green and glossy, emitting a resplendent glow. The surrounding spiritual energy lingered like clouds and mist, making it look very mesmerizing. Many people stopped outside the forbidden land, standing in the air and looking around. They were apparently Jiang Tian and the others. It's indeed the pearl tree. Jiang Tian was moved. The pearl tree was very old. It had existed since the battle of the deity ground 10,000 years ago, or even older. It could be traced back to before the interstellar wanderings. The spirit chi it contained was extremely dense and pure, almost like that of a deity material. Its function. It could definitely help Jiang Tian form the true seal of the law of wood and help the whirling divine tree form the nascent soul. Chapter 1544. There were thousands of steels around the giant tree. Some of them had already collapsed after 10,000 years of wind and rain. The words on them were already blurred, giving people an ancient feeling. This is the training ground and encampment of the guards of the ancient heavenly courts in the deity ground. They absorbed the spirit chi of the pearl tree to increase their power. When the ruins emperor's army invaded, the two sides fought a fierce battle and perished together with the enemy. Jiang Tian scanned with his immortal will and exclaimed, "These steels are their tombs." That battle was indeed very tragic. There were still traces of the Grand Tao in the sky, which were created by the powerful soul formation cultivators 10,000 years ago. They were like nuclear radiation and hadn't disappeared after 10,000 years. There were some miraculous sights such as the one-line sky and the flying mountain. But Jiang Tian knew that they weren't created by natural power. They were created by the overlords 10,000 years ago with their Dharma power or by smashing the mountains from the sky. There were sword marks, knife marks and arrow holes all over the mountains and the ground. Some ancient warships made entirely of black iron and bronze, mottled with divine blood, were embedded on the ground in disarray. They were like old generals who had survived hundreds of battles. Even now, they were still towering and emitting magical power fluctuations. Besides, there were also some hidden restrictions and arrays in the white mist. Some of them were set up by the local cultivators of the deity ground or the descendants of the ruins emperor. It's indeed a forbidden place. Jiang Tian retracted his immortal will and exclaimed. Those arrays had not lost their power and were abnormally powerful, like poisonous snakes that could easily kill nascent soul heavenly lords and severely injure soul formation grand cultivators once they were unleashed. Apparently, they were even more terrifying. Then, Jiang Tian discovered that there were female cultivators with sorrowful expressions. They were wearing the same robes and gathered on the hillside around the forbidden area. They were discussing spiritedly. The leader was the servant of Prince Chunyu, who Jiang Tian had met once in the North Sea. She was a level 1 soul formation cultivator. It was Jiang and I heard that Kang Te-Chu is near the Fallen Leaf Lake. Why can't we find him when we go there? A female cultivator with an oval-shaped face said with reddened eyes. Although there is no detailed news, I think he must have been seriously injured after killing Divine Emperor Hanshi. He should be hiding now. Jiang and I sighed helplessly. This person seems to act recklessly, but he's actually very sneaky and cautious. He's already shut down the teleportation formations of the Northern Sea Realm, the Dragon Gate Realm, and the Yingzhou Realm. He's clearly accumulating strength and avoiding the brunt of the attack. He's despicable and shameless. He won with an unfair advantage. The oval-faced female cultivator was an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. He's just a nascent soul cultivator. He's as weak as a chicken or a dog. Prince Chunyu, Yu Qilin, and even Emperor Hanshi must have been ambushed by him. Her appearance was very beautiful and gentle, and her figure was even more exquisite. She was extremely graceful, but her words were extremely vicious. After we find this treasure, we will find this Kang Te Chu even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground of Penglai. We'll cut him into pieces and extract his divine soul to burn in the fiend fire for 1,000 years. Ah, Yuchilin was known as Lord Peerless. He was kind, but he died in the hands of Kang Te Chu. Prince Chunyu was handsome and had a noble background. He had gone through countless trials to protect the peace of the deity ruins, but he was also killed by this bastard. Kang Te Chu is cruel and ruthless. He invaded our territory and destroyed our country. He deserves to die. He's just a despicable and shameless person. He came from the desolate solar system and didn't have much power. He shut down all the teleportation formations and he's just hiding. He doesn't dare to fight with us elites. When I see him, I'll slap him to death with a single slap. I'll avenge my idol, Prince Chunyu. As for the other female cultivators, although most of them were only at the Golden Core realm, their verbal skills were top-notch. They were all filled with righteous indignation, cursing and ridiculing Jiang Tianji. Some of them even cried. That oval-faced female cultivator is called Su Ruomeng. She's the daughter of a noble and is known as a princess in the deity ruins. She's also a winner of the God of War list and her ranking is higher than mine. Long Xingnan explained with her divine will. They're all admirers of Yuchilin and Prince Chunyu. They even have an organization. For example, when Yuchilin participates in the God of War list trial, these members will cheer him on or provide him with heavenly treasures to promote his achievements. Oh. They're kind of like the fan clubs of celebrities on Earth. Yuchilin and Prince Chunyu are doing much better than me. They have so many female fans. I don't have any. Jiang Tian's expression was very calm. He suddenly realized what was going on, and he was observing these female fans with interest. Huh. There's someone else. Suddenly, Sword Venerable Ao Tian exclaimed. Many flying swords with long tails let out loud rumbling sounds. They were like supersonic fighter jets, arcing through the air and getting closer to the steel forest forbidden grounds. The disciples of the academy are here to search for treasures. You useless cultivators and ants, back off now. An arrogant voice came from the sky. It was like a deity's voice, shouting at Jiang Tian and the others. The flying swords did not slow down in the slightest. With an arrogant aura, they charged straight at Jiang Tian and the others. Long Xingnan wasn't happy. She snorted and was about to attack them. Jiang Tian waved his hand and said casually, "Don't fight them. Let's wait and see." The 100 Moons Academy was different from the palace of the Ruins Emperor. Most of the disciples were actually descendants of the deity ground. They were only loyal to the Ruins Emperor because they had received the grace of the Ruins Emperor's empire and didn't know the truth, so they became enemies with Jiang Tian. At least for the time being, Jiang Tian didn't want to kill them as long as they didn't provoke him and it wasn't time to fight to the death. Jiang Tian led the others to the side. At the same time, they used their divine powers to change their appearances. Jiang Tian had seen the people on the swords before. They were the overlords on the war god role of the ruins of deity and the elites of the academy. Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshen, and the others all had extraordinary backgrounds. Senior brother Cheng. You're here too. Jiang and I, Su Ruomeng, and the other female cultivators all soared into the sky to greet him. They bowed and clasped their fists with adoration. Jiang and I, Sister Ruomeng. Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshen, and the other young talents greeted them and quickly got along well with them. All the teleportation portals here, including the one that Divine Emperor Hanshi and the White Tiger Guard used a secret artifact, have been closed or even destroyed. If we hadn't sacrificed 3 geniuses on the God of War ranking, we wouldn't have made it here. As it turned out, they had captured a group of roaming cavalry in the below sea world, searched their souls, and obtained an ancient world cave teleportation formation, which allowed them to enter this world. The Emperor of the Ruins and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven are on business. Those who are not involved should leave now. Don't say that we didn't warn you. Then. With a shout full of indifference and arrogance, more cloud buildings and flying boats arrived. Their momentum was even grander than the flying sword cultivators of the academy, and they were extremely arrogant and overbearing. That kid from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven is only about the same level as us, but he dares to show off just because he picked up a poor princess. Even Qing Ao Jun and the others showed a hint of envy and jealousy as they spoke to him through their divine sense. Those true artifacts and quasi-Dao artifacts could be used for spacewalking or even interstellar travel. They were priceless for both civilian and military use. In the 100 Moon Academy, apart from the Chancellor and the princes, even the elites on the War God roll weren't qualified to have them. On the largest cloud tower, the eaves were raised and the arches were connected. There were carved corridors and paintings and there were flashing lights. It was mainly made of divine feather purple gold and inlaid with countless precious crystals to form a complex array. It emitted terrifying Dharma power waves and many of them had reached the level of a true array, able to withstand a blow from a soul formation overlord. Even a nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to move it. It was priceless and extremely rare in this world. Those who could control such a cloud tower were obviously rich and noble. Ants from the lower worlds are indeed as timid as mice. Many young men and women gathered. There were hundreds of them and most of them were golden core cultivators. There were also a dozen nascent soul cultivators. The leader was a man in a luxurious robe with wide sleeves. He looked handsome and extraordinary. He didn't look old, but he was already a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. Next to him stood a woman in golden armor with a phoenix crown on her head. She was full of heroic spirit and held a Dao artifact saber. Her cultivation was at the late nascent soul stage, which was slightly higher. Master, this is Zhao Shanhe, the Zongzi of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, one of the 6 grotto heavens in the ruins of deity. Ghost Wolf had already turned into an old servant in black. His pupils contracted and he immediately sent a voice transmission with his immortal will. Chapter 1545. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Anyone who dared to call themselves a grotto heaven was definitely the strongest in the sect. Furthermore, they had to occupy a mystic realm and dominate 1,000,000 miles. In the ruins of immortality, there were only 6 grotto heavens among the thousands of sections. Although they were weaker than the academy, their strength was not to be underestimated. However, when Jiang Tian saw the numerous young men faintly surrounding the woman with the phoenix coronet and using her as the core, he couldn't help but ask with a smile, "This woman seems to have an extraordinary status." Princess Tingyu. Ghost Wolf's expression turned solemn as he asked in puzzlement, "Divine Emperor Hanqi's daughter. Her cultivation level is very high and her talent is extremely high. However, it's said that she and her mother, the divine consort, fought for the rights to the harem with the divine empress. After losing, she was banished to the cold palace by the divine emperor and hasn't come out for 300 years. Why is she being released today? The ruins emperor has now mobilized all his people. As long as they can kill, who doesn't come out?" Jiang Tian said mockingly. At that moment, Cheng Aojuan took a step forward and cupped his fists. "Princess Tingyu, fellow Daoist ascendant, we are here under the Academy's orders to search for or destroy the various ancient treasures in this world. Please cooperate with us." One was the top of the Academy's God of War list, while the other was the son of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven's sect master. The Pearl Orchid Tree is a supreme treasure. The Academy doesn't deserve to have it. It belongs to the Ruins Emperor's Palace and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. Zhao Shanhe didn't want to pass on his responsibility and said arrogantly. "The orders of the Ruins Emperor's Palace rule the world. Who dares to disobey? You must have a death wish." Princess Tingyu also shouted coldly. "You disciples of the Academy are but lowly commoners from the lower realm, slaves of the Ruins Emperor's royal family. Do you think you can compete with me? You want us to cooperate? If you dare to offend the princess, that's a capital offense." Zhao Shanhe said arrogantly. Cheng Aojuan was displeased. After a moment of silence, he said, "I heard that the restriction here is extremely powerful. Only soul formation experts can open it. Neither you nor I can do it alone. Why don't we work together to open the restriction and retrieve the pearl orchid tree? We'll bring it to the ruins of immortality. As for who it belongs to, it will be decided by the God of Swords and the Academy's teacher. What do you think, Your Highness? All right. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourselves. Work hard for this princess, and I'll reward you handsomely. Princess Tingyu and Zhao Shanhe discussed for a while before nodding with an arrogant look on their faces. She was extremely arrogant and spoke bluntly. According to the observation and calculation of our Academy's math chancellor, in an hour's time, the protective restriction and formation of the steel forest will be at its weakest in 1,000 years. How about we work together to blast it open then? Qing Aojuan said. Yes. Princess Tingyu made a soft sound of acknowledgement. She turned around and entered the attic of Cloud Tower. She did not appear again. The many cultivators present, be it the Academy's disciples or the royalty of the Tianmeng Grotto Heaven and the Ruins Emperor's Palace, were silent and solemn. Most of them were swallowing pills and sitting cross-legged in the void to absorb and refine the energy. He wanted to be in his peak state when he forcefully opened the restriction and unleashed his strongest combat strength. Jiang Tian and the others were far away from the forbidden area. Jiang Tian clasped his hands calmly and looked at the many restrictions. He said with his divine sense, Mushue, I've taught you the math of supreme calculus and quaternary calculus for the past day. You've already understood a little. It should be no problem to calculate and break these Dharma arrays and restrictions. Come and try. These Dharma arrays and restrictions were at the divine level. They contained extremely profound mathematical knowledge and their structure and operation were very ingenious. Their Dharma power was extremely powerful and their changes were so complicated that it was difficult to measure. At least 100 nascent soul cultivators or incarnation grand cultivators would need to use all their cultivation to forcefully break them open. Some of the Dharma arrays and restriction components could instantly receive external attacks and quickly convert them into the power of the Dharma arrays and restrictions. They could be used to attack and defend and were extremely difficult to break open. There were even many self-destructing components. Once the Dharma arrays encountered an unbearable external attack, a dimensional storm would erupt and tear the entire forbidden area, including the pearl tree, into pieces. It would be extremely difficult to use them again. However, in the eyes of Jiang Tian, who had been to many modern cultivation planets in his previous life and whose knowledge of math had reached the peak, these Dharma arrays were too simple and crude. It was like a college student looking at elementary school math problems. Everything was easily solved. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't plan to do it himself. Instead, he asked Bai Mushue, who was obsessed with math, to practice. Yes, senior. Bai Mushue was very excited. If it were in the past, she wouldn't even dare to think about using Dharma arrays and restrictions at this level. But after being taught by Jiang Tian, she felt that her math level had reached an unimaginable level. She felt very confident and was eager to try. Bai Mushue made a series of hand seals and scanned the patterns of the Dharma arrays with her divine sense. She frowned and suddenly became enlightened. She was quickly calculating and analyzing the structure and flaws of the Dharma arrays. 15 minutes passed quickly. Everyone suddenly felt that the Dharma arrays seemed to be a little unstable and there were loopholes. Qing Aojuan's face turned serious and he said coldly, fellow cultivators, there are abnormal fluctuations in the Dharma arrays and the Dharma arrays. They are chaotic and unstable. Everyone, let's work together and open the Dharma arrays. Su Ruomeng noticed Jiang Tian and the others and said coldly, you are just ants from the lower world. Leave quickly. Don't try to take advantage of us while we open the Dharma arrays and enter the forbidden area to search for treasures. Otherwise, we will kill you. You can't open it. Jiang Tian revealed a mocking expression as he chuckled. You. Su Ruomeng's face turned cold and she wanted to kill Jiang Tian. Fellow cultivators, don't just stand there. Let's attack the weak points together. Following Qing Aojuan's order, many war gods from the Academy, cultivators from the Tianmeng Grotto Heaven, and even the overlords from the Ruins Emperor's Palace attacked the Dharma arrays together. Su Ruomen glared at Jiang Tian and also joined in to break the Dharma arrays. There were more than 20 nascent soul heavenly lords and a few hundred golden core overlords in total. When they attacked together, it was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. However, no matter how hard they attacked, although the Dharma arrays seemed to be on the verge of breaking, they were still there. When the Dharma power of the Dharma arrays was reduced to a certain level, they kept increasing and became more stable. Some of the Dharma arrays were even activated and poisoned, killing 3 female golden core cultivators instantly. There were also light beams that shot out and turned a nascent soul heavenly lord into powder in a flash. In the blink of an eye, they had lost dozens of people. Their blood was boiling and their nascent souls and golden cores were about to crack, but it was still useless. Then, Qing Aojuan waved his hand and said, "Everyone, no. This Dharma array is evil and it has many changes. Let's study it again and find the real loophole." Damn it. The Dharma arrays left by bumpkins in the deity land in the ancient times are still so powerful after 10,000 years? Zhao Shanhe from the Tianmong Grotto heaven was enraged. He cursed, "I don't believe it. I have to destroy them." He waved his hand and a small bronze cauldron flew out. It became 1,000 feet tall and smashed towards the Dharma arrays like a mountain. This is the Xian Wu cauldron of the Tianmong Grotto heaven. Legend has it that the ancestral master of the Tianmong Grotto heaven made it by an ancient soul formation cultivator. It contains all his achievements and can create Dharma fragments. It's a real mid-grade Dharma artifact. It can destroy everything and destroy everything. It's one of the 3 Dharma treasures of the Tianmong Grotto heaven. Everyone turned pale with fright. It seemed that Zhao Shanhe was really determined to win this time. He even brought the 3 Dharma artifacts of the Grotto heaven. Many people thought, a mid-grade Dharma artifact. It should be able to destroy the Dharma arrays. Even Qing Aojuan was slightly moved. The other gods of war prodigies all looked envious. They were war gods, but they didn't have the bloodline of the South Gate planet. They were the descendants of the deity land and most of them came from second-class planets. Some even came from third-class planets. They might be as powerful as Zhao Shanhe, but they were definitely not as strong as him in terms of resources. After all, he had the support of a Grotto heaven. They weren't qualified to have a mid-grade Dharma artifact. They would be lucky if they could get an inferior grade or even a quasi-grade one. Boom! The Xian Wu cauldron fell and the dimension below cracked. The turtle and the snake were entangled. The turtle and the dragon had 1,000 pairs of wings, flapping and opening their mouths. It was the Xian Wu. The law of the black tortoise appeared, and Taoist rhymes filled the air. The great Tao resonated, and a mighty river appeared beneath the black tortoise's feet. Chapter 1546. Break it. In midair, Zhao Shanhe roared and activated the black tortoise's nomological laws. The river surged, and 5 thunderclouds rose from the river. 5 layers of clouds and 5 layers of thunder, wind, cloud, thunder, and lightning. The river was like a dragon, pressing down on the restriction with great momentum. The 6 grotto heavens of the ruins of immortality had all followed the ruins emperor to conquer the universe. The founder of the Tianmong Grotto heaven was a figure of the same generation as the ruins emperor. Even the headmaster and the heavenly river Starlord had sat down and discussed the Tao with him. As his direct descendant and the future sect master, Zhao Shanhe had endless resources in the grotto heavens. He was also extremely powerful and famous in the ruins of immortality. He used his divine power on the head of the soaring serpent, while the black tortoise below let out a dragon roar. Its sharp teeth and claws tore the sky apart, sometimes dimming it and sometimes illuminating it with lightning. All of a sudden, the restrictive spell began to rumble. In the sky, a black and white Taiji diagram appeared. The yin and yang in it became extremely thin. Within the 2 extremes, yin and yang alternated. In the next moment, the endless nomological laws that Zhao Shanhe had used were easily destroyed by the restriction. The black tortoise cauldron was sent flying uncontrollably for hundreds of miles. It only stopped after crashing through a few mountains. Zhao Shanhe was also sent flying by the power of the restriction. His face was pale. When he took the black tortoise cauldron to take a look, he could not help but feel his heart ache. Many of the cauldron patterns on it had been destroyed, and there were even a few fine cracks. However, this also made everyone realize how terrifying this restriction was. No one dared to touch it easily. A few of the war god prodigies gathered together and discussed with their divine consciousness, studying the loopholes of this ancient restriction. Meanwhile, Bai Muxue turned a deaf ear to the changes in the outside world. Her eyes were slightly lowered as she carefully sensed and deduced the restriction in the steel forest. Finally, after another 5 minutes, a smile appeared on her pretty face. She said excitedly, "Senior, it's done. I know how to open it." "Yes. Let's try it." Jiang Tian nodded. Bai Muxue flew over and came to the edge of the forbidden area. She pointed in the air, and a stream of true essence shot towards a restriction. "Sister Ruomeng, Senior Jiang and I, look at that woman." At this time, everyone noticed Bai Muxue's presence and exclaimed in surprise. After all, the Academy's army, the Tianmeng Grotto Heaven, and the Ruins Emperor's Palace were presiding over the area. They had all agreed that they could no longer attempt to forcefully crack the array. Otherwise, the consequences would be even more severe. Bai Muxue's bold move naturally attracted everyone's attention, and they were all stunned by what they saw. Su Ruomeng leaped into the air and swung her sword at Bai Muxue's back without saying a word. "Bitch, is this yours? Who allowed you to touch it?" Bai Muxue was only a golden core cultivator. She could not withstand the attack at all. Su Ruomeng's attacks were exceptionally ruthless and cold. After all, she came from the upper realm. When she came to Penglai, she was like a city dweller looking at a country bumpkin. No, it should be said that she was like a white middle class in a developed country coming to Africa. She thought that she was superior to others and treated the cultivators and mortals of this world as ants. She didn't care about anyone. "If it's not hers, then it's yours." Jiang Tian frowned and pointed with his finger. He didn't use any Dharma laws, but his seventh metal true essence was too powerful. A finger aura was enough to kill a nascent soul cultivator. There was a loud boom. The sword aura and sword chi exploded. Su Ruomeng staggered backward and spurted out a mouthful of blood. "You're a golden core cultivator." Su Ruomeng looked at Jiang Tian furiously. "Who is he? Why do I feel that he looks familiar?" Meanwhile, Qing Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshen and the other elites on the God of War roll all looked at Jiang Tian suspiciously. They felt that Jiang Tian was very familiar. However, Jiang Tian's divine power to hide his energy and change his appearance was too powerful. Everything happened naturally and they didn't connect him to Jiang Tian. How dare a cultivator from Penglai act like a cockroach? "Let me kill him." Luo Changshen was the youngest among the elites. He snickered and was about to attack Jiang Tian. "Wait. Let them try." Suddenly, Qing Aojuan waved his hand and bowed to Jiang Tian and Bai Muxue. "If you can help us break the array, we'll reward you handsomely, okay?" "Yes, senior." Luo Changshen immediately restrained his energy and looked at Jiang Tian and the others coldly. He didn't say anything else. He wasn't one of them anyway. If he died, so be it. Furthermore, it was impossible for a mere golden core cultivator to cause too much of a backlash from the restriction and implicate everyone. But if they were lucky enough to break the array, everyone would be able to save energy, although the possibility of that was extremely low. Bai Muxue turned a deaf ear to all of this. Her face was calm and serene as she immersed herself in the mathematical deduction and breaking the formation. Her left hand's slender fingers were constantly making calculations, while her right hand flicked out white threads of true yuan from time to time, hitting the various components of the restrictive formation. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, her forehead was already covered in fine sweat, to the extent where it was completely red and hot. This was the result of her divine sense operating at a high speed. However, the restriction magical power was still continuously gushing out, showing no signs of retreating. How can an ignorant cultivator from the lower worlds break the array? Luo Changshan was impatient and was about to kill. Suddenly, there was a series of loud noises as if a giant millstone was rotating above everyone's head. The powerful array's Dharma power suddenly receded and a giant hole appeared. Then, it receded again and again. In the end, the array's Dharma power within 1,000 miles disappeared without a trace. At this moment, many of the cultivators present were stunned. They had never thought that a female cultivator from the lower worlds would be able to break the array's ancient array. That feeling was like seeing a praying mantis overturn a giant chariot or a small ant break a tree. It was extremely shocking. Senior, I didn't let you down. I did it. Bai Mushue waved her fists and jumped around like a child. She was so excited that her face turned red and her eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape. No one had successfully broken the array of the steel forest for tens of thousands of years. Not only the Penglai world, but also the cultivators of Hailan and the ruins of immortality couldn't do it. If the array was the crown of all the divine powers in the cultivation world, then the array of the steel forest was the most dazzling jewel on the crown. And now, she had successfully broken the array in half an hour. How could she not be happy? You're very talented in math. I didn't give you advice for nothing. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Then, Jiang Tian waved his hand and said, let's go. Let's go in. But let me remind you that we broke the array, so the pearl orchid tree must be mine. You can take the other treasures as you wish. He didn't stop the young talents from the ruins of immortality from entering. They weren't the main force of the ruins of immortality at all. Just like the student army that was recruited during a war, they weren't even a regular army and weren't worth mentioning at all. The real main force of the ruins of immortality was the 100 or so soul formation cultivators. The sect master of the Grotto Heaven, the Grand Chancellor of the Academy, the Great Sikong of the Sky Palace and the old divine emperors of the Ruins Emperor's Palace. But at this moment, Su Ruomeng's figure flashed and blocked Jiang Tian's path. She stuck out her chest proudly and looked disdainfully at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an ant. Get out. If you don't, I'll kill you. She didn't give any reason at all, as if it was only right to stop Jiang Tian from entering. Her tone was arrogant and unquestionable. You want to kill me with just you? Jiang Tian stopped and glanced at Qing Aojuan with a sneer. But the latter didn't care at all. She even glared at Jiang Tian, apparently acquiescing to Su Ruomeng's actions. Jiang Tian sneered in his heart. He didn't want to kill those disciples of the academy, but it seemed that they thought his kindness was easy to bully. Of course, he's no match for you, but what if I, Luo Changsheng, join forces? Luo Changsheng took a step forward and looked down at Jiang Tian. His face was handsome, his lips were red, and his teeth were white. He looked like a refined scum. Senior sister Ruomeng, senior brother Changsheng is willing to fight for you. Is he interested in you? He must be. I saw him flirting with you just now. You can be senior brother Changsheng's backup from now on. Women were always like that. Even the female cultivators who pursued immortality couldn't help gossiping. They all talked to each other with their divine consciousness. Seeing that Luo Changsheng was backing her up, Su Ruomeng became even more arrogant. Her nostrils flared up to the sky as she looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and said coldly, "You're just an ant from the lower worlds. You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't know who senior brother Changsheng is. He's an existence ranked in the top 5 of the Ruins of Immortality's War God rankings, a dignified intermediate stage nascent soul realm expert. Killing you is as easy as crushing an ant. Luo Changsheng. Your parents probably gave you this name because they wanted you to attain great accomplishments in cultivation and climb the long path to immortality, live forever, and live a long life." Jiang Tian pondered for a moment, and then he suddenly chuckled. "But I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint them today." "Aunt, what did you say?" Luo Changsheng roared with rage. "I said, you're about to die. Jiang Tian spoke, yet he didn't hold back in the slightest. He stretched out his hand and condensed an enormous golden palm, and then he grabbed Luo Changsheng like an eagle grabbing a chick. Even if Luo Changsheng roared madly and erupted with numerous divine abilities of the laws with the intention of struggling free, it didn't change at all. In the next moment, the enormous golden palm suddenly squeezed. Pfft! Luo Changsheng was like a rotten tomato that had been crushed by a robust man. His flesh and blood flew, crystalline broken bones and internal organs shot out, and even his soul and nascent soul were crushed into powder. At this moment, the entire scene was deathly silent, and even the sound of a falling needle could be heard. Only the whistling of the mountain wind, the rustling of the leaves, and the howls of the wild beasts in the distance were left. Everyone was shocked. Everyone had turned into a pile of clay and wooden statues that stood there without moving, and their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. No one had expected that Jiang Tian would actually be so formidable, and he directly crushed Luo Changsheng with a light clench of his hand. Su Ruomeng, who was nearby, was even sprayed with blood and minced meat, and she let out a sharp cry as if she'd gone mad. As a golden core cultivator, she was a person that killed people like flies. Of course, she wasn't frightened by the bloody scene, but was terrified of Jiang Tian's cultivation and strength. Jiang and I was first stunned when she saw this scene, and then she revealed a slightly puzzled expression. Then she seemed to have thought of something, and her pupils suddenly constricted while her face turned snow white, and she said with a trembling voice, "He's Kang Te Chu." After all, she had fought with Jiang Tian face to face. Although Jiang Tian had changed his appearance and suppressed his cultivation, his temperament and habitual movements were ingrained in his bones, and it was difficult to change them. If Jiang Tian hadn't exposed his cultivation, Jiang and I might not have been able to tell. But now, Jiang Tian had crushed Luo Changsheng, and displayed strength comparable to that of a soul formation cultivator. She would be a fool if she still couldn't figure it out. Everyone couldn't believe what they heard. Chapter 1547. They did not expect Jiang Tian to rush to the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds immediately after the battle at Fallen Leaf Lake. His reaction was too fast. "That's right. It's me." Jiang Tian used the spirit creation art. His facial bones and muscles squirmed as though they were alive, restoring his true appearance. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking down arrogantly as he said coldly, "Fellow Taoists, do you still want to stop me from entering the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds?" Although everyone was trembling in fear, with some female cultivators even crying softly, no one dared to speak. They lowered their heads and submitted. A few of them looked in Princess Tingyu's direction with flickering eyes, revealing a troubled expression. The Ruins Emperor's lineage was extremely strict and had a strong imperial might. Further away, the Heaven Peak sect of the desert world had 100,000 cultivators and a training ground of 1,000 miles. However, because of a casual offense, the Ruins Emperor used a talisman decree to suppress the training ground by 200 miles. All of the disciples were turned into meat paste. Closer to them, Long Baxia of the Dragon Clan had entered the Ruins Emperor's palace to negotiate because his daughter had been captured. And the result? The sword god of the Ruins Emperor's palace thought he was too selfish and killed him on the spot. Prince Chiu Ming led the 3 guards to the lower realm and annihilated the entire clan. The Dragon Clan, which had thousands of years of history, was wiped out. It could be said that the Ruins Emperor's rule was too strict. Loyalty was the most important thing. Anyone who dared to betray him would die. Su Ruomeng seemed to be unconvinced. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Tian sent her flying with a slap. Half of her face was smashed. "Don't test my patience. Otherwise, all of you will die." Jiang Tian said softly. "We dare not. Fellow Taoist Taichu, please be magnanimous and forgive us for our offense." Finally, it was Jiang Tian who took the lead and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian, speaking with a face full of fear. She had an ambiguous relationship with Prince Chunyu, almost like a couple. Of course, she wanted to kill Jiang Tian to avenge Prince Chunyu. However, did she have the strength to do so? She had just crossed the threshold of soul formation. Strictly speaking, she was not even at the first level. However, Divine Emperor Hanshi, a soul formation Divine Lord, had been killed by Jiang Tian. If she were to make a move against Jiang Tian, she would only be sending herself to death. Chen Aojuan, Su Changqing, and the other heavenly talents were still hesitating, but after seeing Jiang Ni's attitude, they quickly knelt down and bowed. We don't dare. Not to mention Su Ruomeng and the other female Golden Core cultivators. Jiang Tian was able to kill a semi-god realm warrior. They were nothing but ants in front of Jiang Tian. They knelt on the ground, unwilling and humiliated. He is Kang Teichu. Zhao Shanhe, the Zongzi of the Tianmeng Grotto Heaven, was stunned. As the son of the Heavenly Abode's sect master, how could he not know of Jiang Tian's great name? He was simply a demon-like existence. Why aren't you kneeling? Jiang Tian glanced at the cloud tower where Zhao Shanhe and Princess Tingyu were and sneered, do you want to die? With a plop, Zhao Shanhe could not withstand the pressure and fell to his knees. Greetings, Your Excellency Kang Teichu. Princess Tingyu also walked out slowly and knelt on the ground unwillingly. Even though she gritted her teeth in hatred, she had no choice but to kneel and submit at this moment. After all, Jiang Tian was a terrifying being who had even killed Divine Emperor Hanshi. Her strength was still too far away from his. Then, do you have any objections if I want to enter the Steel Forest Forbidden Ground? Jiang Tian looked around with his hands behind his back. Wherever he looked, whether it was Jiang and I, the heavenly talents on the God of War list, the children of Grotto Heavens or the Princess of the Ruins Emperor's bloodline, they all bowed and said in a trembling voice, we have no objections. The Steel Forest Forbidden Ground is an ancient treasure. Only a peak overlord like Senior Taichu is qualified to enter and occupy it. Zhao Shanhe even cupped his fists and said respectfully. Kang Teichu, you are indeed here. Ha ha ha. Just as Jiang Tian was about to step in, all of a sudden, the mountains within 10,000 miles of the 10,000 feet mountain range began to tremble. The mountain peak seemed to have come alive. From 10,000 feet to 10,000 feet, from 10,000 feet to tens of thousands of feet, they were like giant waves that lifted up a muscular man. Interesting. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense. His pupils constricted slightly as he immediately stopped in his tracks. The burly man had used some kind of creation arcane art to control the mountain range and turn it into a living thing to help him move. He stepped on the mountain range and walked on the huge waves. His divine sense was abnormally powerful and mysterious. He must have reached the peak of artifact refinement. The burly man was dressed in rough leather clothes. His bare upper body was full of lumps of flesh. His broad chest was knotted like a dragon's muscles. He carried a huge hammer and his face was covered in dust. I've been looking for you in the Penglai world for a day and turned it upside down. You are indeed a greedy person. You're here to seek treasures. He looked disdainful as he laughed. The sound waves were like a giant dragon emerging from the sea, shattering the space. Lightning flashed and the surrounding mountains collapsed. One roar could shatter mountains and rivers. Everyone was shocked. This was a divine transformation realm powerhouse. Ban Shan. He is the core disciple of the Academy's headmaster and is ranked 5th. He is a divine transformation realm grand chancellor. His body is strong and his strength is as great as a mountain. He is ranked 1st among the chancellors in the Academy in close combat. He is proficient in the Star Essence Fire Principle and the Creation Arcane Art. He is extremely powerful. Ghost Wolf's pupils constricted. His sinister face was extremely solemn as if he was facing a great enemy. The black raven feather robe fluttered and stirred the space. He held the air piercer tightly in his hand, causing circles of space ripples. Ban Shan, the headmaster's disciple. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. Jiang Tian saw through many of Ban Shan's dharma. Ban Shan was already at the middle stage of Divine Transformation Realm, slightly stronger than Divine Emperor Hanshi. But you think you can kill me by yourself? You are too weak. You know I have a peerless fairy weapon. If I use it, killing you will be as easy as slaughtering a dog. Jiang Tian smiled and transmitted his voice through divine sense. Kang Te-chu, you are indeed powerful. You killed the 3 Golden Crow guards, Prince Chunyu, and Divine Emperor Hanshi. Such achievements and strength are almost comparable to the headmaster and the sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace. In terms of one-on-one combat, I'm definitely not as good as you. But since we have lured you into the trap, why would a divine transformation realm cultivator like me appear in front of you? Ban Shan laughed loudly. His body was as majestic as a mountain and was surrounded by the solar essence fire, thunder, and other dharma. He was like a demon god that had descended. His aura was extremely powerful and seemed to be able to suppress the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Lured Kang Te-chu into the trap. Many female disciples of the academy, the heavenly talents of the gods of war, and even Zhao Shanha of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven and Princess Tingyu trembled. Their faces darkened as they realized what had happened. We are just pawns that lured Kang Te-chu into the trap. Princess Tingyu looked miserable and her eyes were dull. She said with a trembling voice, the heavenly talents of the god of war role are the descendants of the abandoned people. Why would the ruins Emperor Palace care about your life and death? After suppressing the natives of the deity ground during the age of Dao damage, the Tianmong Grotto Heaven once fought for power with the ruins Emperor Palace. Although they were later suppressed by the ruins Emperor and the headmaster, they are still a thorn in the hearts of the upper echelons of the dynasty. They sent Zhao Shanha to the lower worlds to be Kang Te-chu's cannon fodder. Jiang Ni is the princess of the royal family of the Western Liang world that was wiped out by the ruins of immortality. Although Prince Chunyu dotes on her, the ruins Emperor Palace is still wary of her. They took the opportunity to use her as cannon fodder to lure Kang Te-chu. If word got out, no one would suspect that the ruins Emperor Palace was trying to kill them all. As for me, I was the loser in the harem fight. Back then, Divine Emperor Hanshi wanted to kill me. Now that I've lured Kang Te-chu here, I'm making the best use of everything. After Divine Emperor Hanshi died, the overlords he sent to this world were all pawns to lure Kang Te-chu. After all, Jiang Tian already had the strength of a soul formation grand cultivator and was extremely difficult to kill. Besides, overlords at that level were proficient in divine powers such as hiding, qi concealment, creation and disguise. If Jiang Tian really wanted to hide, they wouldn't be able to find him even if they turned the entire Penglai world upside down. If they wanted to end the battle quickly, they had to strike accurately. They had to find a few cannon fodders and move around the Penglai world in a big way to lure Jiang Tian out. The real masters would hide in the dark and follow those cannon fodders. When Jiang Tian appeared, they would surround him and kill him. That was the most likely way to win. There's another soul formation cultivator. Ghost Wolf, by Mu Xue, Sword Highness Outyen, Zhang Qingyang, and the others were astounded. When Jiang Tian killed Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was at the 2nd level of the soul formation realm, he had used all 9 Dharma laws and was on the verge of using the heavenly sword. This time, Ban Shan was already slightly stronger than Divine Emperor Hanshi, but there were more soul formation cultivators working together to kill him. Jiang Tian might have to use the heavenly sword. Even if he did, he might not be able to win. Chapter 1548. When the plum blossoms are falling, frogs are everywhere in the pond. If you have an appointment, you won't come in the middle of the night. You're playing chess. Right at this moment, a leisurely and elegant chanting voice sounded out. A black and white rainbow pierced through the heavens and earth, traveling thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, rapidly approaching from the far east. The black and white aura tore the sky apart like a supersonic fighter and descended. He saw a man in green robes sitting cross-legged on a huge chessboard. Black and white round chess pieces floated around him, making loud noises. Brother Black and White, you're late. Ban Shan cupped his hands and smiled. I've been away for a long time. I met 2 old men playing chess in a small town and had a game with them. Luckily, I didn't miss the important thing. The man in an azure outfit smiled and tapped the chess pieces leisurely. He frowned and stared at the chessboard, as if he were a famous scholar in the Wei and Jin dynasties. Black and white. He's the disciple of the headmaster of the academy and he used to be a grand chancellor. I heard that he's been away for 1,000 years. He's finally here. Ghost Wolf said with his immortal will. This man entered the Tao through chess. He experienced the changes of life and death and understood yin and yang. He formed his own unique chess rules and understood the great Tao. His laws and great Tao's, every move is full of changes and unpredictable. Only when you're full and have nothing to do can you play chess. Jiang Tian said with disdain. Chess is just a small Tao. It's not worth mentioning. The two of them are far from enough to kill me. Yin and Yang, the four symbols, the celestial phenomenon and the changes of the 5 elements were all in the world. You could have just understood nature. Why did you have to use abstract chess to simulate your understanding? You're already at a disadvantage. What if I join them? As soon as Jiang Tian said that, a dazzling sword aura that resembled a dragon's roar shot over from afar. The sword aura sliced through the sky at the speed of light and landed in front of everyone, revealing a white-haired man in a white robe that fluttered in the wind. His aura was extremely sharp. The third soul formation cultivator. Everyone was stunned. 3 soul formation cultivators were here. What did that mean? In the High Lan world, the Fertile Land world and the Desert world, not a single soul formation cultivator had been born in the past 10,000 years. Even in the boundlessly vast ruins of immortals, which used chi drawing arrays to forcibly gather the spirit chi of many worlds, there were no more than 100 divine transformation stage cultivators. The 100 soul formation cultivators were still unevenly scattered across the ruins Emperor's Palace, Sky Palace, 100 Moon Academy, and the 6 Grotto Heavens. Some sects, Grotto Heavens, and states might only have 1 or 2 soul formation cultivators or none at all. In the end, in this small world of Penglai, including Jiang Tian, 4 divine transformation realm experts had gathered in front of the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds. This was simply earth-shattering. Once news of this spread out, it would surely shock the world. So it's really a trap. Jiang and I, who was lying on the ground, slightly trembled as she murmured, "We are only a pitiful worm that attracted Kang Te-Chu here. As for our survival, the upper echelons of the ruins Emperor Palace do not care at all." At that moment, the 3 strengthened deities had yet to release their Dharma power and divine powers, but the power they naturally emitted was already making their bones creak. Even Zhao Shanhe, Cheng Aojuan and the other geniuses were trembling in fear. Their legs felt like jelly. As for Su Ruomeng and the other female cultivators, they were already lying on the ground in fear. They had already forgotten about Yu Qilin and Prince Spring Rain's revenge. Even Princess Tingyu was trembling all over. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's protection with the wind, Bai Muxue and Long Xingnan would not have been able to withstand the power. They would have only been able to crawl on the ground. A divine transformation realm cultivator's nascent soul had turned into a divine treasure that contained a deity. It resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth and controlled the great Tao fragments. Ordinary nascent soul cultivators would be like mortals facing a deity. They would not be able to withstand that terrifying power. The sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace? Jiang Tian's eyes were slightly cold. He looked at the cultivator on the sword who was surrounded by sword chi dharma and even had the aura of the great Tao of sword. Was this person the #1 sword Tao expert in the ruins of immortality, the legendary sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace who came from the depths of the Starry Sea? He did not look like one. His great Tao fragment was still at the star level, which meant that he was unable to walk out of a star. He was only on par with the 2 grand chancellors of the academy. The sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace came from the depths of the Starry Sea. The great Tao he comprehended should be even more powerful. He naturally could not reach the universe level, but he should at least touch the great Tao of a star system level. What kind of person is my master? Back then, he was on par with teacher and could compete with him. Now, he has reached the void reversion realm. You alone are not enough for him to come out of seclusion personally. The cultivator on the sword looked down arrogantly. Today, the 3-foot-long sword in my hand is enough to slay you. He was not the sword god of Ruin's emperor's palace. He was only his servant. Long Xingnan, Bai Muxue, sword venerable Outyen, and company were all stunned. The servants of the sword god of Ruin's emperor's palace had all reached the soul formation realm. They were comparable to headmaster's disciples. It was no wonder that the sword god was as famous as headmaster in Starlord Heavenly River in the Ruins of Immortality. They were the top 3 powerhouses of the Ruins of Immortality. Sword servant, killing Kang Te-Chu is our highest mission. You almost came too late. What if he escapes? Ban Shan snorted unhappily. Before coming to this world, I made a trip to the fertile earth world and killed a few half-step soul formation cultivators who did not listen to the orders of the Ruins Emperor's palace. I don't want them to think that the Ruins Emperor's palace is a pushover and has no authority if my master does not appear for a long time. The man on the sword said casually. At that moment, the fertile earth world was in chaos. The sword god's servant had descended to the lower realm to kill. He swept through the fertile earth world and killed 2 half-step soul formation cultivators in a row, forcing the cultivators of the entire star system to submit. Previously, the fertile earth world that was gradually leaning towards Jiang Tian because of Wu Shujian's lobbying quickly returned to the control of the Ruins Emperor's palace. Kang Te-Chu, the ancient treasure is here. To be honest, there are countless such treasures in the Ruins of Deity. It's not rare at all. The sword servant turned around and looked at Jiang Tian. If you sign a divine soul contract with us right now and swear never to offend the Ruins of Deity again, I'll let you live. We will let you live. The below sea world will belong to you, and we will even promote you to become an important minister of the immortal Ruins Empire. Otherwise, don't blame us for bullying you with our numbers. Ban Shan bared his teeth and laughed menacingly. His energy was vast. The gods in the divine treasures roared and many fragments of the Grand Tao shook. Many cultivators looked at Jiang Tian with fear in their eyes, not knowing what he would do. 3 soul formation cultivators working together. That was a rare battle. Even in the Ruins of Deity, a battle between soul formation cultivators was extremely rare, let alone 3 soul formation cultivators attacking one person. Although Jiang Tian was famous for killing Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was also a soul formation cultivator, facing 3 more powerful soul formation cultivators at the same time, Kang Te-Chu will definitely die. This is an earth-shattering trap. Both the 100 Moon Academy and the Ruins Emperor's Palace have invested a lot. Ban Shan, the best cultivator in close combat, object controlling and artifact refining, the black and white chess master and the sword god's servant are all people who have shocked the world. That sword servant has obviously inherited the true teachings of the sword god of the Ruins Emperor's palace. He's definitely not someone to be trifled with. Kang Te-Chu only has 2 choices, either he dies or kneels and surrenders. Many experts thought to themselves. 3 soul formation cultivators. Jiang Tian looked down and didn't say a word for a long time, as if he had run out of ideas. When Su Ruomeng saw this, she stood up in an arrogant and domineering manner. She let out a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells and said arrogantly, Kang Te-Chu, kneel and surrender. 3 soul formation grand cultivators are here. How can a cultivator from a peripheral planet resist them? She thought Jiang Tian wouldn't dare to resist and would only surrender and beg for mercy, so she wasn't afraid at all and jumped up again. Chapter 1549. Ha! Do you think you have the right to speak here? Jiang Tian waved his fingers and slashed in the air, directly destroying her body and soul. Even her golden core was shattered. How dare you! Su Ruomeng's face was still full of shock and fear before she died. She had never thought that Jiang Tian would be so powerful that he would still dare to kill her under the threat of 3 soul formation cultivators. The 3 soul formation grand cultivators didn't even change their expressions and didn't try to stop him, as if Su Ruoxue was just an ant. Her death in Jiang Tian's hands wasn't worth mentioning at all. In fact, at their level, their hearts were as tough as iron and they were already different from ordinary people. Life was just like grass in their eyes. A battle between soul formation cultivators would affect the whole situation. They were only thinking about how to kill Jiang Tian. They didn't care about the life and death of the others at all. It would be a great loss if they were exposed during the process of rescuing Su Ruoxue and were severely injured by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian looked at Su Ruoxue and flicked his fingers. Who in this world can afford to kneel and surrender? I'm going to kill you today. I'll let the ruins of deity know that I can kill 1 soul formation cultivator and 3 soul formation cultivators. I'll still kill them as usual. How arrogant of you. The black and white stones' expressions turned cold as they suddenly raised their heads. A black ghost stone flew out from the go board, heading towards Jiang Tian. Boom! This chess piece enlarged in the wind, and it was actually a gloomy meteor that was 3 kilometers in diameter. It contained the essence of the moon, and it was extremely rich with yin energy and emanated clear radiance. It crushed space to the point it shattered, and it smashed down from the sky. Today, I'll sacrifice your blood to my sacred sword. The sword servant on the sword roared. The scabbard on his back made a noise and his sword jumped out. The 3-foot sword immediately turned into a long river made of long sword Dharma laws. It contained the fragments of the Grand Tao and was full of Taoist connotation. It slashed towards Jiang Tian. Controlling objects, seal of 10,000 mountains. Na Banshan shouted. As his thick and strong fingers moved nimbly, the tall mountains rose from the ground as if they were alive, forming a mountain formation. Waves of earth vein energy gushed out. They were as thick as dragons, crisscrossing in all directions like iron chains that stretched across the sky, wanting to trap Jiang Tian. The area within a radius of 10 miles instantly turned into a hopeless situation. Not good. Retreat. Seeing this, Qing Aojuan, Su Changqing, and the others all turned pale with fright. They all stepped on their flying swords and quickly retreated, rushing out of the circle. Let's go too. When the war of the gods begins, we are like ants in it. They'll be torn apart by the shockwaves in an instant. Zhao Shanhe complained incessantly as he flew into the cloud tower. Many cloud tower warships formed a torrent that shuttled through the earth vein dragon and the sword chi laws. Go! Jiang Ni's beautiful face turned pale. She used her teleportation ability and brought the many female disciples of the academy with her. She flew outside in a panic like a stray dog. It was safe to say that the 3 semi-god realm warriors were all masters of killing. They were cold and merciless. They only wanted to kill Jiang Tian and didn't care about the lives of the others. Rumble. Sharp blades crossed the sky, killing everything. The earth vein energy was heavy and crazily erased everything. The chess pieces and meteorites also created violent wind that tore the sky apart. The aftermath was earth-shattering. Ah! Senior, wait. We haven't escaped yet, screams came one after another. Dozens of female cultivators of the academy were affected by the attacks. Their blood dyed the sky red as they died. Their bodies fell like rain and exploded. Even their golden cores and divine souls were destroyed. Bang! A cloud tower exploded and a giant mushroom cloud rose. Many cultivators of the Tianman Grotto heaven were killed. No! Su Changqing was affected by the sword chi of the sword servant. One of his arms was directly cut off and he fled with a huge string of blood. Kang Te-chu, you should be honored that the 2 chancellors of the academy and the sword god's servant worked together to kill you. This has never happened before in the ruins of deity. But the 3 semi-god realm warriors didn't even look at him. They just unleashed their divine powers and attacked Jiang Tian crazily. Humph! You don't have the right to fight with me. Jiang Tian stood proudly in the sky and endured the violent attacks of the 3 semi-god realm warriors at the same time. However, he didn't even change his expression. Instead, he was at ease. The heavy earth vein energy, the overwhelming sword auras and the moonlight of the meteorites immediately turned into a calm stream when they were a mile away from him. There wasn't even a trace of energy around him. He had firmly blocked them with the sea-calming ice god law. All of a sudden, he waved his sleeves and the Kuan Peng law enveloped Long Xing Nan, Ghost Wolf and the others. They pierced through the earth vein energy, the sword auras and the light of the meteorites like arrows and flew 100 miles away. So powerful. The three semi-god realm overlords trembled and they couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian was surrounded by the divine powers of the three semi-god realm warriors. Normal semi-god realm warriors couldn't even move their little fingers even if they wanted to move. However, Jiang Tian had used the Kuan Peng's laws to break open space with a wave of his sleeve, sending the servants out. This was truly unbelievable. The three of them only felt that Jiang Tian, who had been tightly restrained by the Dharma restrictions, had hit the weakest part of their restrictions with a wave of his sleeve. It was like the array eye of the array or the Achilles heel of the iron skin technique. Jiang Tian waved his sleeves and the Kuan Peng law broke the weakest part of their restrictions, forcing them to step back and take the initiative. Damn it! We can't let him do that. The three divine lords were so upset that they almost vomited blood. Swish! The sword servant took back the sword. Black and white pieces grabbed the sword and mountain move cut off the connection with the mountains. We have to use our full strength. This guy is too powerful. We have to kill him in this world no matter what. We can't let the flames of war spread to the ruins of deity. This is an order from the Emperor of the ruins of deity. The three of them looked at each other and communicated with their divine minds. You're courting death. You provoked the ruins of deity and invaded our territory. That's unforgivable. Ban Shan roared as his eyes widened in anger. He took a step into the air and flew towards Jiang Tian. He raised the gigantic hammer on his shoulder high and smashed it down. The hammer was made of some unknown precious metal. It had a sliver of chaos aura, as though it was a divine artifact. In fact, the gigantic hammer was indeed extraordinary. He had once used it to forge asteroids and countless Tao artifacts. Its strength was unimaginable. Wherever the gigantic hammer passed, golden Tao charms emanated. The sound of the great Tao reverberated as bolts of lightning lingered like dragons. The Grand Yang essence fire spewed out, shattering and collapsing the void as everything within 50 kilometers trembled. With a loud boom, the ground beneath the gigantic hammer cracked, forming a deep crater that spanned 5 kilometers. Mountains that spanned 100,000 feet collapsed one after another. The heaven and earth within 500 kilometers were affected. It was as though a hurricane had passed through, reducing countless trees to dust. In the end, even more mountain peaks collapsed. Rubble pierced through the sky, and the entire boundless mountain range shook. The mountain ridges rose and fell like waves, as if a great earthquake had erupted. Kill! Black and White Child roared. The black and white chess pieces floating around him suddenly transformed into black and white chi. They spun in front of him like yin and yang fish, evolving into yin and yang. Following that, with a tap of the air, the black and white chi transformed into a shocking rainbow. It spun at high speeds like a top as it charged towards Jiang Tian. The yin and yang chi were derived from the great Tao of the chessboard. They were soft yet firm, extremely tough and sharp. One day, when he could refine the yin and yang chi into chaos, returning from Taiji to infinity, he would have cultivated the divine power to its peak. When that happened, a single strike could reduce everything within a radius of thousands of kilometers to dust. It could even encompass an entire continent. At that moment, although Black and White Child had yet to cultivate it to its peak, they were already extraordinary. The black and white chi were extremely fast, even slicing through space. Clang! Finally, it was the sword servant's turn to attack. The sword servant of the ruins Emperor's Palace's sword god had a stern expression as he flicked his finger. An incomparably dazzling, dragon-like lightning sword beam shot out from his hand. It instantly traversed a distance of 10 miles and arrived in front of Jiang Tian. That sword was so powerful that even Divine Emperor Hanshi would be moved by it. The nomological laws and great Tao fragments were completely contained. They were silent and only exploded within 3 meters. They were aimed at hitting Jiang Tian precisely without any wastage. Wherever the blade passed, the space cracked inch by inch and was annihilated into a pure void. The torrent of space flowed backwards and could easily destroy divine treasures. Even Ghost Wolf with his air-piercing blade couldn't break through the attraction of the torrent of space. He would be instantly devoured. The three experts who had descended from the ruins of immortality and gathered here to set up a peerless killing trap finally attacked with all their might. Moreover, they attacked with all their might, not giving Jiang Tian any way out. They wanted to eliminate all future troubles. How terrifying was that soul formation overlord's power when he attacked. The vast Penglai world resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was rumbling and shaking. Natural disasters such as hurricanes, thunderbolts, and rainstorms arrived. Even geomagnetism and stellar storms suddenly erupted. The mountain range and the entire world were in chaos. The sun and the moon hung upside down, as if they were about to collapse. He's too powerful. Is this the power of a soul formation grand cultivator? Qing Aojuan, Su Changqing, and the others kept retreating. They had already retreated 300 miles away, but they could still feel the powerful energy waves and pressure. They were already elites and elites among the younger generation in the ruins of immortality. It was easy for them to destroy cities and mountains with one attack. And yet, He Banshan's every move was too powerful, as if the world was about to be destroyed. A casual attack was enough to smash them into meat paste. In fact, the sword servant is more powerful. His control of the great Tao fragments and Dharma laws has already reached the peak. Cheng Aojuan commented. Normal soul formation cultivators could shake 10,000 miles and move mountains and seas with one attack. Their power was indeed shocking. However, their power was too scattered. It was like throwing 100 punches might not be able to kill a person. But the sword servant was different. He gathered all the great Tao and Dharma laws within a 3-meter radius. The Dharma laws of swords in that area were extremely thick and boiling like an ocean. There were even great Tao fragments floating and spinning. They were extremely condensed. It was like concentrating all the power on a bullet, which could kill with one shot, leaving the enemy with no chance to fight back. The disciples of the headmaster of the academy and the servants of the sword god all have the power to move mountains and seas and pick up stars and moons. Ban Shan is powerful and his body is strong. He's the best at close combat and his giant hammer even contains a great Tao fragment. Black and white qi, the cycle of yin and yang, life and death, hardness and softness. The sword servant can control the great Tao fragment at will. Kang Te-chu is still far from being able to do that. Jiang and I snickered and there was a look of longing in her eyes. Chapter 1550. The others, including Princess Tingyu, were also looking forward to it. For those cultivators who had been stuck at the nascent soul level for hundreds of years, becoming a soul formation cultivator was their only goal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken such a huge risk to explore the mysterious ancient treasures. Attracting Kang Te-chu was part of their plan. They wanted to find the ancient treasures and improve their power. Too powerful. Too powerful. Kang Te-chu is dead. Jiang and I mumbled to herself and her eyes glittered. Even though they were a few hundred miles apart, Jiang and I still trembled when she saw the giant hammer that seemed to be able to crush the world, the black and white qi that seemed to be born from chaos and the sword aura that shattered the dimension. A sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. Jiang Tian had killed her beloved Prince Chunyu and forced her to kneel this time, which made this princess of the northern Liang world, who had surrendered to the ruins of deity, hold a grudge against him. Boom! Facing the giant hammer surrounded by thunderbolts and heavenly fire, the yin and yang qi and the sword aura that contained the power of the grand Tao, Qin Fan's expression became serious. Jiang Tian's eyes revealed an unprecedentedly serious expression. His dantian suddenly rumbled, and a 3-meter-long divine disc appeared behind him in a dazzling manner. Break! Jiang Tian stepped forward and dodged the sword servant's sword aura. He then got rid of the suction force formed by the dimension with the Kuan Peng speed law. He clenched his fist and the divine plate flashed and all of it was infused into his jade-like fist. Then, he threw a punch. Boom! That punch was more powerful than a normal soul formation cultivator's. There was actually the aura of primal chaos circulating around it. It was peerlessly powerful, and it crushed space to the point it was like numerous black holes. Clang! The forging hammer was actually sent flying, and Ban Shan himself was carried by the hammer like a spinning top, spinning at high speed in the air and quickly flying backwards. But he was flying slower and slower. Even though his clothes and hair were a bit messy, he didn't seem to have been hurt at all. Instead, he drew a giant arc in the air with the power of Jiang Tian's punch and struck again. At the same time, the black and white qi were also rapidly approaching. Jiang Tian snorted and reached his right hand into the void, shaking it lightly. With a ripping sound, the void was torn apart. The green lotus golden lotus blossomed with boundless treasure light and appeared in Jiang Tian's hand. Clang! Jiang Tian casually waved his hand, and the green lotus golden lotus split the void with streaks of destructive light, striking the black and white qi. Humph, he can't break it. You will suffer a backlash, and even the colorful plate on your back will shatter. Seeing this, Jiang and I coldly harumphed with disdain. The black and white pieces sat on the chessboard as steadily as Mount Tai, revealing a strong sense of mockery. Kang Te Chu, you're too arrogant. This black chess piece was refined from a dark meteorite from the depths of the starry sky. It was extremely yin, dark, and lifeless. As for the white chess pieces, they were condensed from the energy of the solar storm particles. They were extremely masculine and full of vitality. The two were combined into one and refined for 3,000 years to form a set of black and white chess pieces. It had all the laws of life and death that the black and white pieces had merged with. It was made with laws as the chain and the Tao of life and death as the foundation. Even soul formation and divine lords would die if they were entangled by the black and white qi. Really? Then you can try. Jiang Tian grunted with arrogance in his eyes. The green lotus golden lotus continued to attack and the chaotic energy spread, clashing with the black and white qi. Bang! There was an earth-shattering explosion. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. The golden lotus petals were shot in all directions and the white qi dragon was torn to pieces like paper. The green lotus leaves and branches were like a black hole in the universe, swallowing the black qi dragon crazily. No! At this moment, the black and white pieces shook violently and almost spurted out blood. They roared together with the entities in the divine treasures, shaking the world. He hurriedly formed a hand seal to retrieve the black and white qi. When the two kinds of energy turned into chess pieces and returned to him, he was shocked to see that all the white qi dragons had disappeared. All of the white chess pieces were cracked and dimmed, and half of the black chess pieces were swallowed by Jiang Tian's green lotus golden lotus. So powerful. The black and white pieces suddenly realized what had happened. They were so shocked that the muscles in the corners of their eyes trembled crazily. This little bastard used the killing law to break my white qi chess piece and the green leaves to create the life law to swallow the death qi black chess piece. His attack also contained the life and death law. However, he's just a Dharma law. How can he break my Tao? But then, the Dharma laws and fragments of Dharma laws of Ban Shan and the sword servant had come back and attacked crazily again. Clang! Clang! Jiang Tian performed the Kuan Peng's speed and broke through the air. He dodged the silver snake-like fragments of the sword Dao and fought with Ban Shan continuously. The sword servant's Dao laws weren't much more powerful than Ban Shan's. But they were very condensed and their power was restrained. Once they exploded, they could easily kill a normal soul formation cultivator. Jiang Tian couldn't touch them easily, so there was no need to take the risk. His strategy was to defeat them one by one and kill Ban Shan first. Clang! When Jiang Tian collided with Ban Shan's giant hammer for the 5th time, he felt that Ban Shan's power seemed to be much stronger than before. He recalled that every time he attacked, his power was even stronger than before. Borrowing power. Jiang Tian frowned slightly. Ban Shan was sent flying like a spinning top by Jiang Tian again, but he took the opportunity to draw a huge arc in the air again. He was surrounded by thunderbolts and divine flames. He kept releasing a small part of Jiang Tian's fist power into the air and merged most of it into the giant hammer, which smashed forward with a thunderous force. 1 hammer. 2 hammers. 3 hammers. Jiang Tian punched again 10 times, and Ban Shan hit back 10 times. And, each hammer was fiercer than the previous one. The last hammer was almost 10 times more powerful than the first one. It seemed to be able to shatter stars. Clang! But when the fist collided with the giant hammer for the last time, Jiang Tian looked bitter and quickly retreated. The divine disk behind him seemed to have dimmed a little and his face was as pale as paper. The Dian Law. This is the Dian Law created by the headmaster. It can instantly deprive others of their power and laws and turn them into his own. Qing Aojuan exclaimed. If the headmaster hadn't been born, the ruins of immortality would have been like a long night. The headmaster of the academy was a brilliant, eclectic, and brilliant sage. Back then, his disciple Yan Hua had touched 10 kinds of laws and successfully controlled 4 of them, which gave the headmaster a lot of inspiration. They worked together to create the Dian Law. With this Dao Law, one's potential could be stimulated and completely comprehended. One could control billions of laws and be infinitely close to the Great Tao, greatly increasing the probability of becoming a soul formation cultivator. This was the first stage of the development of the Dian Law. In recent years, the headmaster had created the second part of the Dian Law. In short, the second part of the Dian Law could borrow other people's true essence, qi, blood, and the great Tao of laws and turn them into his own power and laws. His attacks would be stronger than the previous one. If he mastered this Tao Law, he could kill people above his level. Theoretically speaking, even if a nascent soul cultivator fought against a soul formation cultivator, as long as he could withstand 100 attacks without dying, he could kill a soul formation cultivator above his level. It's a very advanced law. Such a Tao Law is close to the great Tao of heaven and earth. Even Jiang Tian sighed. This Grand Chancellor Ban Shan's magic power, martial techniques, and corporeal body were all extremely strong. His corporeal body was especially strong, allowing him to withstand over 10 punches from Qin Mu. That was why he could use Great Evolution Tao Law to transform and use Qin Mu's attacks. Even if Jiang Tian only used his fists, it was already terrifying enough. It could be said that this Dian Law was very suitable for him. It was as if it was tailor-made for him. But this is the end. If my punch is 10 times or 100 times stronger, can you withstand it? Jiang Tian sneered. He slowly retracted his fist at his waist. The golden divine disk behind him suddenly dimmed and shrank to a third of its original size. In the end, it completely disappeared. The next moment, Jiang Tian punched out. Heaven and earth were in chaos. The wind whistled and a 10-mile space tunnel was created. Gung Metal Divine Fist. The Gung Metal Divine Fist was originally a peerless divine power that was activated after the Gung Metal Divine Body transcended into the Gung Metal Immortal Body. Strictly speaking, it didn't belong to the human world at all. It belonged to the celestial world and its power was extremely terrifying. Even if at this time, several kinds of Jidan in Jiang Tian's divine disc had reached the peak, but to make a full blow, he had to use the Super Divine 9 transformation technique to forcibly transform the other kinds of true essence coefficients into the 7th metal true essence. Boom! With this punch, a golden light that penetrated the heavens and the earth appeared between heaven and earth. Everything within a 10,000-mile radius trembled. The mountains within 1,000 miles all collapsed and trembled as the fist energy passed by. Block it. Ban Shan, be careful. Seeing the power of this punch, black and white chi flew out with the life and death laws as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Before Jiang Tian's fist energy really arrived, a Tai Chi Yin and Yang shield was formed between Jiang Tian and Ban Shan. Open. Ban Shan's figure retreated like a dragon. He suddenly widened his bell-like eyes and gritted his teeth with a crazy expression. Obviously, he also knew that it was the most critical time. As he shouted, small stones flew out from his storage bag. They turned into huge meteorites. Some had even reached the level of a small planet. They were at least 100 miles wide and filled the void. Clang! The Tai Chi Yin and Yang shield shattered. Roar! The god in black and white sun's body roared to the sky. The world felt it. Thunder exploded and lead clouds gathered. His god had already cracked. Hundreds of meteorites scattered and exploded. The world was in chaos. Ban Shan was punched. His bones and tendons were broken. There was a huge pit in his chest. His body was covered in blood and his divine treasures were cracked. He flew more than 10 miles away. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and he was about to kill him. Not only did Ban Shan not look painful, but he also sneered and said, "Kang Te Chu, you've fallen into my trap. You're dead." Galaxy Space Lock. Jiang Tian was stunned and thought, "Oh no." All of a sudden, countless meteorites and small planets let out endless light and Dharma laws, intertwining into a net and enveloping Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian felt as if he had fallen into 10,000 mountains and couldn't break free at all. A domain. Jiang Tian realized that Ban Shan had collected countless meteorites and small planets and refined them into a starry sky array, which contained the fragments of the Grand Tao and formed a domain unique to soul formation grand cultivators to trap him. He had just scattered countless meteorites and planets not to resist, but to form an array and a domain. Oh no! Jiang Tian's heart sank. He quickly took back all the true essence of gung metal and split it into 9 kinds of true essence. The divine plate behind him shone brightly and kept expanding. Jiang Tian only needed a flick of his finger to restore the Kunpeng laws to the peak state and break the space forcefully. However, in a battle between soul formation overlords, the other party was enough to completely kill Jiang Tian in a blink of an eye. Too late. You can't escape. The sword servant chuckled. Crack. 3 meters behind Jiang Tian, in the air, a sword light suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was almost impossible to describe the sharpness and speed of the sword with words. It was like an antelope hanging its horn, or an elephant crossing a river, as it pierced through Jiang Tian's body. Chapter 1551. Even the sword servant himself was aware of it. That was the most powerful slash he had ever made in his life. He had truly reached the highest level of sword Dao, where his sword was unpredictable. It could be said that there were only a handful of soul formation grand cultivators in the ruins of deity who could make such a terrifying slash. Jiang Tian had pushed the 10-foot divine disc to its limit and turned it into 7th metal true essence. He hadn't had time to retrieve it and break it down, so he couldn't use the Kunpeng laws. He was also locked down by the galaxy space-locking array. He was in a desperate situation at the moment. Senior. Master. Use the heavenly sword. At this moment, Ghost Wolf and Ao Tian Swordmaster exclaimed. Long Xingnan and Bai Muxiue even had tears in their eyes. Ha, Kang Te Chu is dead meat. Jiang Ni and the others burst into laughter. Long Xingnan, Ghost Wolf, you've betrayed the Emperor of the Ruins. You'll be punished later. Princess Tingyu and the Tianmeng Grotto Heavens Zongzi, Zhao Shanhe, looked at Ghost Wolf and Long Xingnan with murderous intent. The sword servant's sword laws contained fragments of the sword Dao. It was even more powerful and was comparable to an attack from a peak stage soul formation cultivator. Jiang Tian had used up all his energy and hadn't recovered yet. He was at his weakest state and was completely at the mercy of others. While everyone was screaming, they saw the sword aura of the Dharma laws pierce the divine disc behind Jiang Tian and the power of the fragments of the Grand Tao burst out. Crack! The divine disc was penetrated by the sword aura. With the wound as the center, dense cracks spread like a spider web and covered the entire disc in the blink of an eye. Rumble! The fragments of the Grand Tao contained in the sword aura exploded at the same time. Dharma laws surged like an ocean and immediately covered the 10-foot divine disc and Jiang Tian's body. They wrapped around Jiang Tian like a crystal cocoon and killed him crazily. Crack! Crack! Without the Kunpeng's laws supporting him, Jiang Tian was unable to struggle free in the slightest. His body shattered, and numerous blood-colored cracks appeared on his body. One of his arms miserably exploded, causing divine blood to spray out and dye the sky red, revealing his sparkling and translucent divine bones. No! Jiang Tian raised his head and roared. His hair fluttered in the wind like a waterfall. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks as divine light shot out from his eyes. He was filled with unwillingness, anger, battle intent, and murderous intent. Of course, he was unwilling to give up. He followed the path of his predecessors and traveled 40,000 light-years to arrive at a foreign galaxy. He went through untold hardships and disregarded life and death, all for the sake of reclaiming his homeland and avenging the ancient grudge. He wanted to one day drive a long chariot through the ruins of immortality. He wanted to feast on the flesh of the barbarians and drink the blood of the ruins' emperor. He wanted to sweep away all enemies and plant the foundation of Earth for all eternity. And now, the revenge from the ancient times had yet to be avenged, and the fate of Earth was still unknown. But he was killed by 3 semi-god realm cultivators working together. How could he accept this? How could he not be angry? This sword light was extremely sharp and pierced through Jiang Tian's body and Dantian, flying out with a spray of blood. Chi! In an instant, Jiang Tian's aura plummeted once again. On the divine disk, the light that had been slowly recovering suddenly stopped and dimmed. Kang Te-chu, you're indeed talented. If you were given another 10 years, no, maybe a year, you would have successfully entered the nascent soul level. Your divine power and cultivation art are extraordinary. You can kill semi-god realm cultivators when you're just a golden core cultivator. Once you enter the nascent soul level, even our masters, the sword god and Lord Tianhe, will be afraid of you. Even though Ban Shan was complimenting him, his rough face was already as cold as iron and the viciousness in his bell-like eyes was extremely strong. He didn't care about the blood flowing out of the wound on his chest. He quickly cast spells with his hands and formed a domain with the galaxy space lock array. The space turned into an iron block and firmly locked Jiang Tian's body. He said coldly, "Unfortunately, you're too aggressive, too bold and too arrogant. You don't know how to hide your strength and defend yourself. You've exposed yourself too early. There's no way you can win against 3 semi-god realm cultivators today. You can only die here with regret. Ban Shan, Black White and Sword Servant, if you can't kill me today, I, Kang Te-chu, swear that I'll cut you into pieces one day." Jiang Tian gritted his teeth and shouted. Flames of hatred shot out from his eyes. He swayed his body and activated all kinds of divine bodies and dharma laws. The phantoms of Gungjin Immortal God, Thunder Mantis, Sea Calming Ice God, True Fire Vermilion Bird, Origin Returning Tao Tai and Kunpeng flashed across the sky, trying to break free. Crack, crack. The domain formed by the galaxy space lock array began to collapse and the colorful starlight laws were broken. Jiang Tian seemed to be able to break free from the starlight laws and the great Tao. How is this possible? Ban Shan was shocked. His body shook violently and he shouted, his disc-shaped golden core is already full of cracks, and his physical body is also broken. How can he still break through my galaxy space lock domain? Black White, do it. I'm coming. At this moment, Black and White Child had already recovered to their peak state after a period of recovery. Hearing this, they formed a hand seal, and the black and white cheese transformed into a yin-yang tai chi diagram in the sky. It contained the great Tao of life and death, and it covered the sky and covered the earth. It pounced down and enveloped Jiang Tian's entire surroundings, then transformed into a huge black and white ball. Even with the galaxy space lock array, they could at least see Jiang Tian's figure. But then, they could only vaguely see wisps of golden light, black light, flames, and thunderbolts. A flying sword slashed out from time to time, but the black and white chi kept circulating and couldn't be truly cut off. In the end, even the golden light, black light, thunderbolts and flames couldn't be seen. Jiang Tian was completely sealed inside. Then, the sword servant's hands trembled and his face turned pale. He seemed to be struggling to make a sword spell and shouted, "Kang Te Chu, this is the last attack. It's time to end it. Die." There was a whoosh. The sword light condensed the great Tao fragments and appeared out of thin air again like an electric dragon. It broke through the air and stabbed towards Jiang Tian in the black and white chi ball. "You can't kill me." An angry roar came from the black and white ball. Whoosh. There was a whoosh. An ancient sword with a simple design, dull and lusterless, as if it didn't have the slightest fluctuation of laws, suddenly stabbed out of the black and white ball, half of the sword's blade emerging. Then, it slashed in the air. With a whoosh, the Dharma laws and great Tao of the galaxy space lock array, the black and white chi, the great Tao of yin and yang, and even the great Tao sword light of the sword servant disintegrated in an instant. It was even to the extent that many asteroids exploded like giant firecrackers and were annihilated and dissipated in the air. How is this possible? Ban Shan said in disbelief as he spat out a mouthful of blood after the destruction of the galaxy space lock array. At this moment, Cheng Aojuan, Zhao Shanhe, Princess Tingyu, and even Jiang and I were terrified and full of disbelief. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to still have the power to break free from the domain. It's the heaven-severing sword. It's the heaven-severing sword of Emperor Sheng Zhongli, the heaven-severing sword of the heaven-severing sword. Black and white chess retreated together with the chessboard and said angrily, "This kid is only a golden core cultivator, but he can activate the heaven-severing sword." The heaven-severing sword was a deity artifact. Strictly speaking, it didn't belong to this world, it was born in the Dharma laws of the deity realm and contained the Dharma laws or great Tao of the deity realm. Once it was activated, even a wisp of it could break normal Dharma laws or even saint-level Dharma laws, it could even easily destroy the great Tao of the lower worlds. "Come, let's fight." At this time, Jiang Tian took a step out of the billowing dust. He held the sword in his hand. Although the divine disc on his back was dim and cracked, his body was shattered, revealing his bones and organs, and his entire body was drenched in blood. His clothes were ragged, and he seemed to be in a sorry state, his aura still surged into the heavens. He was like a peerless immortal king that had descended into the mortal world. His energy has weakened. Even with this deity artifact, he won't be able to activate it for long. Kill him and this deity artifact will belong to us. The sword servant stared at the old sword in Jiang Tian's hand with greed in his eyes, like a hungry ghost seeing delicious food. Deity artifacts, even refined ones, had never appeared in the ruins of deity, not to mention the heaven-severing sword, which was a natural deity artifact. In the eyes of the sword servant, the heaven-severing sword was as precious as half of the ruins of deity. It was a peerless weapon. However, what he said about killing Chen Fan and taking his treasures made sense. For Golden Core, Nascent Soul and Soul Formation cultivators, deity artifacts were like children facing missiles or nuclear weapons, they were extremely complicated and difficult to control. They would have to use all their strength and think hard to activate them once. At this moment, he ought to take advantage of the time when Jiang Tian was injured and weak to not let him off. He ought to beat him up while he was down and completely annihilate him so as to eliminate all future troubles and seize his treasures. Of course. Kill him. While Ban Shan and Black and White Chess were energized and were about to rush forward and cut Jiang Tian into pieces, suddenly. Clang! A giant pair of crocodile scissors appeared out of thin air and cut towards the three of them. The teeth of the scissors were like peerless heavenly swords, each of them was sharp and there were fragments of the great Tao around them. They tore through the air with endless power. Yi Gongming, one of the 7 great ancestors. Why did this old man come to the mortal world? Ban Shan and the other 2 were shocked. They used their own unique skills, Dharma laws boiled, great Tao fragments rumbled, sword auras burst out, black and white chess pieces flew, giant hammers swung and meteorites flew across the sky, clashing with the crocodile scissors. The two sides fought dozens of times in the blink of an eye, breaking the air and collapsing mountains. An area of dozens of miles was instantly razed to the ground. Although the three of them were very powerful, they were still forced to retreat by the scissors. Cold sweat came out of their foreheads and they complained. Ban Shan was even sent flying dozens of miles by the scissors. He spat out blood and his bones were broken again. Suddenly, an ancient existence that was hundreds of feet tall appeared out of thin air and blocked Jiang Tian behind him. With a wave of his hand, the crocodile scissors shrunk and fell into his hand. This old man had a crocodile head and a human body. His bloody mouth emitted a thick smell of blood and his pair of golden vertical pupils were very cold. He was wearing a rusty and worn-out armor, a waistcoat and shorts. His exposed skin was covered with hard scales, and there were terrifying bone spikes on his back. He had webbed feet, and he was stepping on turbid water. His 9 steel whip-like tails poked out of the round holes in his shorts, swinging back and forth. He looked like a demon or a god, terrifying beyond compare. At this time, he didn't reveal his golden core Dharma form or nascent soul Dharma form. It was his original body, but he was hundreds of feet tall. It was really terrifying. The mighty old man was actually very thin. His ribs were like steep mountain peaks and he was all skin and bones. His aura was a little weak, but his strength was still shocking. Fuck. These 3 old fogies bullied the weak with their numbers. How evil. If you have the guts, fight with me. He glared and shouted. His voice was like a great bell that shook the air. Lead clouds rolled and thunder exploded within 1,000 miles.